All righty. Let's begin the show. I'm happy to be back here again, as always, with you guys, uh, always supporting me and joining me every Sunday afternoon, whether you're busy or not. You seem to always be here, which is awesome. We've had some pretty nice weather. It's been about mid 40s here in the East Coast. Things in Washington, D.C. have been really crazy lately. I'm staying away from that. I do not do politics here. And, this is dedicated for us who enjoy and have a very like minded way of thinking. That is, we love to print photos, no politics. Okay, so we will not be discussing any of that here. This is a time to be happy for all of us to get together regardless of where you are from, regardless of what ideology you believe in. I don't care. We are here to discuss photo printing. So I'm glad that everybody hopefully has had a very good beginning of 2021. So far, so good. Okay. I have a very exciting thing planned for today, and it's going to be a demonstration that I hope goes well. I'm going to demonstrate basically the three ways that you can approach the Epson waste ink problem. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, it will not apply to any printer that utilizes a user replaceable waste ink cartridge. All that means is that you can replace those yourself, and when you buy new ones, they come already loaded with a chip that will allow you to begin again. But the types of printers that have cartridges that write on the printhead assembly itself and go back and forth as you print don't have that. They don't have a user replaceable waste ink container or whatever you want to call it. So you have to rely on some other method of, taking care of that problem. What happens? Well, you'll be printing happily, and all of a sudden you get this notice that some of the parts have reached the end of their life. Well, that's kind of a gloomy statement. And literally, it just stops working. Your printer will no longer work. It cannot be operated until you reset those counters. And now, how to do that? Well, three different ways, and we're going to cover that a little bit later. Literally, I'm going to do it in front of you, but I'm not going to do the one last one because I want to do a video on its own for that because the company's waiting for me to do that. Let me go get a box of paper. I was looking for a piece of 11 by 14 cardstock. You know how the boxes of paper come with the stack of paper and then like two protective pieces of cardstock, front and back on the pile. So I needed a piece of cardstock for my grandson's school project. And I discovered this. I'll be right back. Okay, another lovely paper. I should have had it here. And you guys may be very familiar with this. This is Palo Duro etching. Okay, we have tried Palo Duro soft gloss. And again, it's one of those burrito papers that have that lovely, lovely surface that is just slightly kind of a semi gloss type effect. You may also, I don't know whether you can see it, but right over there, right there where I'm pointing, is my R2000 that I revived after, gosh, a year and a half of no use. And I think I mentioned that to you guys earlier. I was able to install OEM cartridges that I have many of because those cartridges were being sold very, very cheap on eBay due to the fact that that's one of those printers they use in the DTG industry, direct to garment printing. And the inks that they use for that just eat up print heads. So what they do is they buy hundreds of these R2000s and then keep a few bodies, chassis to be modified to be able to handle the t-shirt printing. And then the rest are ripped or devoid of their print heads, and they use those print heads to replace the ones that are literally only last maybe 6 months, okay, of constant use with these inks. So this is Palo Duro etching, and inside, see, I was looking for that cardstock. Inside, I found some prints that, for whatever the reason, I had stuffed in this box here. So that's always nice when you discover something like that. So one of the things that kind of got my attention, what is this? The instructions. One of the things that got my attention was that I used to print on a non-coated paper, and that was the Canson Aquarella paper. And you can go buy this. Is it Canson? Yes. You can buy this at just about any art shop, like a Staples or a maybe a Michaels. AC Moore used to be around, but they went bankrupt. But anyway, that is meant for actual watercolor painting. And you've seen my big prints that I have made of a scene that I shot at the state capitol. It was a outdoor cafe, and I turned it into, it looks like a Parisian type outdoor cafe, and I turned it into a painting, and I printed it on, I think it was like 17 by 24 watercolor paper. Actually, it was 18 by 24, but I couldn't get 18-inch wide paper on my art 3880, my Pro 3880, and also my Pro 1000. So I had to trim an inch off of it. Well, the results are amazing. And so I said, well, how do I go about extracting the last bit of quality, printing with a pigment ink printer in this paper that's not even coated for inkjet printing? So I made a profile. After I made the profile, I printed this. Now you can see this looks a little bit duller, and it's supposed to, because this is not coated at all. This will be like if you were printing on normal cardstock. A lot of people try to do that and get dismal results. Well, maybe a profile will help you. And this is a standard image printed on that particular type of paper. That's that watercolor paper that is not even coated for inkjet printing. And as you can see, not bad at all. And then I believe this one here, let's see. I did write some information here. This is Pro 10 with the PCSE OEM red. I am using matte black ink in, Canson watercolor uncoated paper. Now, again, your blacks are just simply not going to be as deep as they would be on a coated paper specifically made for inkjet printing. But that look, it just looks like almost like it was etched. It looks like it has like one of those, what are they called as? Lithographs. Lithographs. It looks like that. Lithographs that you see usually do not have a very, very deep black. At least some of the ones that I have seen don't. But anyway, this has that kind of weird, kind of a non-photographic look, more artistic in a way. So that's one approach. And again, don't expect this to look like something printed on real paper. Now, let's get to that paper right there, that nice etching Palo Duro paper. What a difference, okay? It is just amazing. I did my image of the, let's see. So this is the etching paper. How many do I have here? Okay. I did one print of that same image. And again, it's got that, it's matte, and it's got that gorgeous surface. Let's see, what else did I do here? My fish. And it just looks fantastic. The blacks are deep. I mean, it's just nothing to really complain about. I did a shot of some of my lilies up front, and those look fantastic as well. And again, it's just this lovely, lovely surface. And it just looks fantastic. Palo Duro etching, Epson. This is on the P800. Okay. So again, you got to use a pigment ink printer, and you're going to choose a fine art setting for matte. Again, here is a very, very kind of a little bit unrealistic looking. It has that kind of aura. I don't know. It looks like you're in a different world. An old car that I found. What kind of car is that? I can't. Dodge, no. Ford, I don't know. Opel. It's an Opel, believe it or not. And look at the rust. Look at the look. Look at the overlook. I don't know, kind of dreamy looking quality to that. So that was a surprise for me because I was bored the other day and I was looking around for something to do. And I said, let me look at this box. I'm looking at the Red River site to see if they have the San Gabriel paper back out. I know they had a little bit of a delay in the release of the newest batch or version of it. And I simply love it. It's just a fabulous paper that I did those prints the other weekend for our good friend here and watcher. So, yeah, um, they don't really have it out yet, but I'm just waiting. I'm waiting at the edge of my seat to be able to get some of that. We're going to be drinking something a little bit weird. It's orange and mango calamansi aid, and this comes from I don't know what country, but anyway, we were over at World Market and loaded up our cart with a lot of strange drinks, and so that's what we are having today. Let's see what we got here. I talked to Mike Lee yesterday from Precision Colors. He shared with me a weird situation that he experienced with the XP 15,000. And remember, originally he was using, see, there are two firmwares. One that requires you to begin in the off position, okay, and use a certain installation tool that forces you to enter service mode. And then you go ahead and use that tool to install that firmware. And we couldn't get it to work. Okay, we couldn't get it to work. So we played around. Then I was looking in their forum, and one of the admins for Inkship said, hey, try this firmware. And he posted a link on there, which I then used and installed it on my XP 15,000, and that worked. Okay. Remember, it did not install to 97%. I think it stopped at 97. And that kind of worried me because it was like, now what? Well, apparently that's normal. Okay. Really weird. I think they need to address that problem. And so once we kind of got through that fear and just clicked next rather than redo, it worked. I was able to install the firmware activation code and then generate the so-called recovery code and copy and paste it. Then, long story short, now we got it working 15,000. And in case you guys didn't see that, last week I did the refilling video on those cartridges and it went without a hitch. I was able to fill those cartridges. Let's see. When they are empty, they weigh about 13 and a half grams, give or take. I really don't know how empty you need to go before, when it declares it as empty, whether they still have a bit of ink left. But anyway, 13 and a half grams is what it supposedly is. And I was about 17 grams. So that's like, 4 ml or grams of ink still left. And you got to catch it at that point. Okay. You have to catch it at that point if you want to refill successfully. We did the dribble method, actually the stream method. I was pumping ink as fast as I could squeeze it out of my bottle. Amazing. It's like a sucking it in. And I was able to get it to 27 grams, which is a couple past what Precision Colors states in their instructions. So great. So now we have cartridges that were never filled that high. 22.8, I think, is the setup volume that you receive when you buy these cartridges. And we got it up to 27. So every one of them is pretty much loaded to the max. You begin to see a wetness on the exit sponge. At that point, stop refilling and just get some folded paper towels and blot that area so that you don't have that flooded look. And then very carefully pop them back in your printer. Now we have this printer that is basically at chipless condition. Okay. And all we have to worry about is now refilling those cartridges every month or so, depending on how much you print. Take one out. If it weighs around, 16, 17 grams, it's time to top all of them off at that point. You don't want to go below that because then you will trigger something internally. There's a little tiny valve. It's a spring-loaded device that will prevent that let's just say that it allows all of the ink to exit. Okay. So there'll be no one will be, you know, griping about the fact that they didn't get to use all of their ink. The problem is if you do use all of your ink the first time, then you won't be able to refill them to that 27 ml. Sorry, not ml, 27 gram capacity. Okay, it will prevent you. What it does is apparently it just does not allow the bag to collapse or something like that, so that you can then expand it with a full load of ink. Okay, I don't quite understand what actually is taking place physically, but again, the instructions that came from Mike Lee state, and again, no one's doing this, only we are. He states that if you go empty, then you will not be able to refill them to the total capacity it is capable of being refilled. And then you have to perform this collapsing of the bag and so forth using a cap that you have to modify to accept the needle. Yeah, you don't want to get to that point. Okay, I'm going to do one of those in the future, and you guys will see what happens when you collapse the bag. And that's in case, for instance, you find some empties on eBay. I haven't been able to find any. Okay, so at this point, this printer's been around for at least a year plus, and still no one is selling any empties. And if anyone else is doing what we are doing, we really are not aware of. So it's interesting. Now, let's go ahead and, I'm also going to be discussing, again, I'm going to go over an email that had to do with someone found a Pro 1 for sale on eBay, and the seller claims, oh, it's in good conditions, good condition, operating condition. And I thought, okay, how old is this printer? How old has this person had it? 3 years. And I thought, okay, that's a little iffy. You know, you're really taking a chance when you do that. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that. And then I was hoping to do a video on what I believe is my top list of 13 and 17-inch printers of 2020, at least through to 2020 and entering into 2021. We'll cover what you should be looking at if it's your very, very first time at printing, or you've been printing for a while like me and you have a multitude of printers, or maybe just one or two. You know, you may not want to upgrade if you're already at a certain level. All right. As you guys can see, I'm not very well prepared today. I almost thought about not having a live stream because, you know, let's just say I am not in a super happy mood right now with the events that have taken place here in the Capitol. It's just crazy. So again, I got to bring myself out of that funk, if you will, and get in the mood like I'm always. Maybe I just need to print something, right? All right, let's say howdy to everybody here. We have a Canadian, Gary Longcall, Pro 100. Again, if you are on the chat, you're lurking, join us, say hello, tell us what printers you're interested in. And if you don't have a printer, just at least share with us what you want to get into, what you want to explore, what would you like to, you know, begin to learn about, and so forth. And all of us here are just a nice group of folks who get together and we help each other out a lot. All righty. Nathaniel Booth from Baltimore is here. My good friend, I hope you are ready to do your P800. We're going to turn that baby into chipless. It's really simple. Actually, someone already did it, and it's really not an issue. So not like the 15,000. Okay, that has a few little problems. All right, Michael Cavaliere. Happy New Year, Jose. Mike from Connecticut, Epson P800. Awesome to have you here. My friend Henry Stoffel, of course, Medford, Massachusetts, and a P800 owner. Emmanuel is here. Normandy, that's in good old France. P600 and Cone Inks. Again, see, we're beginning to realize who the regulars are. Busy today. You must be new. I don't think I've ever seen you here. Welcome. Glad to have you. Henry Junkman. Hank. Oh, I'm sorry, not Henry. Hank Junkman. We're going to get new glasses this coming week. Yeah. And I'll be able to read this silly screen a little bit better. Hi, Hank from Connecticut, and new owner of a Pro 1000. Awesome. I'm glad that you jumped to that awesome printer. It is just amazing. It's a pain in the neck sometimes, but it produces amazing prints. And what can you do? You can't complain. Peter Yorth, Copenhagen, Denmark, Pro 10S, Pro 100S as well. Nice to have you. George is here from Cyprus, Pro 10S and Pro 1000. Everybody seems to be using Canon printers overseas a lot. Nikos is here from Greece. And again, we know he's got that TM200 8350. Oh, our Belgian beauty is here from Belgium, Pro 1000. And I hope that you are doing well, my dear. Miner's Cat, Biden in China pocket. Yeah, keep dreaming, guys. All right, let's not talk politics. Matt Barnes, Epson P6000 versus Canon Pro 2100 with OEM inks. Which one would you prefer and why? Well, I do not have any information on the P6000. I stopped at the P5000, okay? Because to me, everything else would be something ridiculous to have here in this small studio, if you want to call it that. I assume the 6000, how many colors does that have? 12? I think the 5000 was 11 or 12 colors. The 5000 took over for the 4900, which was a total failure, actually. It didn't really perform very well mechanically. I mean, the prints, once it worked, it was great. Mechanically, it was just a failure. They had to quickly replace it very quietly. They didn't mention it too much. The 2100 from Canon, awesome. What can I say? It has a few extra features of the 2000 that the 2000 doesn't have. John Palermo, when pulling out one of the cartridges, all lights go out from the rest of the cartridges. Is this normal? What printer? Okay, you have to tell me the printer. But yeah, that is not normal. Vanity custom prints with vodka. Oh, you telling me that I should? No, I don't drink, man. I appreciate that. Sounds good though. But I gave up drinking many moons ago. I may have a beer once in a while here or there. When I go to Disney World, Epcot, and we go to Germany, I'll have a little trifecta of three different beers, and that's about as far as I go. Starboy, what about using the Inkjet Mall high density photo black and the ultra high density matte black? Absolutely. I have been doing that. They sent me, oh, they were very nice. They sent me like two 8-ounce bottles of the blacks, and I quickly installed those on my P800. That's what I'm using at this point. It does work. I did a video. In fact, I got 1,500 videos, so it's difficult to go back and look. But in the I forget what category I put it in, maybe several categories. I did a video comparing your regular Epson photo black and matte black inks on matte paper and glossy paper, and then comparing them to the one from the Cone company, Cone inks or Inkjet Mall. I did that on the 2880 because it allowed me the ability to quickly go from one black to the other without having to worry about ink lines. So the P800 would not have been a good candidate for that kind of testing. The 2880 is perfect for that. So I did that, and indeed, it did show deeper DMAX on your very deepest blacks. So it is worthwhile to do that. John Palermo, or that's on a P100, on a Pro 100, you mean, not a P100. That's Epson talk. Pro 100, yeah, it's not supposed to go out. They're not supposed to. Are you using OEM inks, I hope? OEM cartridges? They should not all go out, only the one you remove. Joe Pascarello, off topic a bit. What are your thoughts on curved monitors? Do they distort the image? I suppose they do. It's like one of those curved television screens. You kind of have to be right at the central point of that curvature, so you are sort of like a radius marker. Yeah, I would expect at certain distances, either too close or too far, it would have some kind of effect. I don't have one. Too fancy for my pants. Nathaniel Booth says Epson P800. Yes, you do, my friend. Ink should be here this week. Yeah, it's taken a long time. Yeah, I just finally got. Let me move this over. Yeah, just finally got the second shipment. Actually, yeah, the second shipment for this printer right here of inks. So now I have extra inks. What happened was he sent me the first one, and it was like locked somewhere in limbo for a couple of weeks. Should only take 2 days. Once it reaches New York, at that point, 2 days, you should have it. Well, it was 2.5 weeks. And so he sent me another shipment. And all of a sudden, the first one shows up, and then this one took, again, 2.5 weeks to get here. And it couldn't even be traced, okay? Which is nuts. Ron Daly. Hi, this is Ron from Murrieta, California. I have a Pro 100 and a Pro 10. Awesome. Very good. A lot of Canon people here today. But again, that's because it's so easy to refill. That's people always were mad at me for nothing but Canon. Jose's only talking Canon. Yeah, because the Epson printers, the new ones, unrefillable. You cannot refill the original cartridges, and Canon lets us do that. That's the reason. Peter says, I can share that I am loving my Pro 100S, especially on HM Photo Glossy. Hanemio, yeah. Yeah, I can't spell it either, so I would put HM as well. Like having wet prints. It's like having wet prints in my hands without the smell. Awesome. Yeah, I hated the acetic acid and the hypo smell. Hank Junkman says, it is actually Henry. Oh, okay. Yeah, I had an uncle, Henry, who passed away a while ago. So that was one of my heroes in my family, next to my dad, of course. All righty. Peter Marquez, Southern California. So we got a couple of Southern Cal people. SoCal. I grew up there. Grew up in LA. I was just down the hill from Dodger Stadium. Hello from Madison, Wisconsin. That's Spike 597. You haven't been around, brother? What's happening over there in Wisconsin? Samuel C. Reyes Jr. from Los Angeles. See that? LA people. This is Southern Cal today. Epson Stylus R3000 recently up and running. Thanks for keeping your fingers crossed. Okay. Check that black ink switch valve. Hopefully it will work. Unless it's brand new, then it should. Robert Minix, waiting on the inks for the XP 15000 from PC here on Monday, but found issues with downloading chipless software with a RAR file. What do you mean? What do you mean issues? Share that with us, because I have not experienced that problem. It was no problem downloading them. Are you getting a security problem alert? Joe Pascarello says, Mad City. Yeah, it is kind of mad. Steve Kuning. Steve in DC. All right. P800 proprietary inks. All righty. Stay home, Steve. Don't go out. I mean, stay home. Safe. Stay home and print. Gosh. Brad Mangas, new viewer and subscriber from Kansas. Really enjoy all of your info, Jose. Thank you. Thank you. Glad to have you here. Big Game James, living the dream here in Solana Beach, California, using a Canon Pro 100. I'm waiting list for a P900. So yeah, um, remember I told you guys I have some resetters here with the P900. I'm putting that APB out again. Anyone who already has one, and is willing to participate in this study, okay? The company in China is relying on me and on PC as well to test whether this works on North American based P900s or P700. So if anyone has a P900, P700, and you have a cartridge that's nearing empty, contact me, please. Send me that cartridge. I'll pay for postage. I don't care. And I will test it and I will send it back to you. You pop it back in your printer and see if the levels are either the same or they have been reset to full. If they have been reset to full, imagine what that would do. Okay. Because I think I know how to refill those cartridges. Okay. That would be groundbreaking. Okay. Unless somehow they come up with a chipless solution for that, which I don't know if they're going to do that. But anyway, they're sitting right here, 2 resetters. It wouldn't do me any good to buy a cartridge because I don't have a printer to run it down so that I can then reset it, quote unquote, to see if it works or not. It wouldn't do me any good because I would need a printer. I need someone who already has a printer to just send me that cartridge. Okay. That's all. And I would send it back to you modified for refilling. Okay. For nothing. I will cover both shipping. Okay. I just need to do this so I can get back to that company and tell them whether it is a success or a failure. Okay. No, the jobber one's waiting to empty out. Wait, what are we talking about? Let me go back. Okay. All right. They should not, yeah. Even the original, they're not jobbers. They're real. Okay. I just answered somebody about that today, and people are still thinking that the setup cartridges are somehow different. No, they're not. They're the same. They're just labeled as, okay? I just lost track of where the heck I was. Okay. So, yeah, those cartridges that come with a Pro 100 are the ones that I'm refilling right now. Okay. The chip has some sort of extra data that gets installed into the printer during the initial installation, and it allows you to use, I think, a couple of silly Canon softwares. So it kind of makes that software accept the printer as being genuine. Okay, that's all it is. It is the same amount of ink. In fact, it comes filled to the brim with ink. Okay, so don't think you're getting less ink that, when you go buy regular cartridges for whatever it is, $20 each. It's the same cartridge with as much ink as you can possibly pack in them. So keep that in mind. George says, receiving photos from customers for printing, which were edited on their non-calibrated bright monitors, look too dark in my print setup. Yeah, that's not your fault. Okay, this is why I keep saying everyone who's dealing with image editing needs to calibrate their monitors. What can you do? It's already been ruined. It's already been ruined, because the minute you, okay, The minute you edit those images down by reducing the brightness, guess what you're doing to the histogram? You cannot get that back. You just threw out information. And they're probably being sent to you as JPEGs as well. Gosh. Oh my goodness. Okay. So yeah, there's not much you can do other than maybe applying an adjustment layer and trying to increase the density slightly. Make them look bright again. Correct. I wish people would just stop doing that. John Palermo says waiting on PC inks to come in for the Pro 100. Yeah, it's taking forever. Taking forever. We were hoping that right about now things would ease up a little bit, but I think if you were to go to one of these warehouses where truckloads of packages are coming in, and PC has to send their stuff to a central distribution center for the USPS in New York, just across the falls, basically. And they are backed up. So, of course, imagine you have a room full of boxes and a new truck comes in. They put it in the front, and guess which ones go out first? The ones that are accessible. And eventually the whole room will be caught up. And those ones that are way in the back, that was this box right here. That box was way in the back. It'll finally make it out and you will get it. So the inks will be fine. People worry also about, are my inks going to freeze? No, they don't freeze. It's like antifreeze. Diethylene glycol doesn't freeze. Okay. So no worries about that. You would have to put them in liquid nitrogen to be able to freeze it. Brad Mangas. Canon Pro 10 user, wanting to place my first order from Precision Colors soon. How's the shipping from them going? Terrible. That's how it's going. The shipping with everything. My wife sent some little packets of some spice to our sister-in-law in Milwaukee, and it took literally 3 weeks. One envelope, 3 weeks, with sufficient postage. So I have no clue what's going on. Charles Verbruggen, no stock of Epson XP 15000s here in Belgium. Yeah. Same here. I was going because the company that sent me these resetters wanted to know, hey, have you done it? Have you done the test yet? Totally unrealistic. What are you clueless? I don't have a printer. And even if I had the money to buy it, they're not available. Epson has none. Okay, out of stock. Everything is out of stock, especially the 15,000. Did I start that interest? I hope not. It's been around for quite a while. You can get it occasionally. Some of the big box stores, the electronic shops like Micro Center, you can get them. Maybe Best Buy might have one. The same thing goes with the P900. Seems that some camera stores in New York may have them for a very short time. They sell like that and they're gone. And the factories just cannot seem to be able to keep them replenished sufficiently quickly enough, in other words. So they cannot stay. They fly off the shelves. And so you'll never reach a point where there's a backlog of XP 15000 not being sold. No. Or P900s or P700. That's what it seems to be like. Leaf Wicklund says, are the Chinese resetters supposed to work on European 700s and 900s too? That we don't know, okay? But what a pain that would be for you to ship me a half empty or almost empty cartridge for me to reset it and then send it back to you for you to test. That's why I'm kind of hoping that someone here in the US can do that. I mean, it already takes 2 weeks for a little 2-day package to get to me. So that's the whole thing. I need to test it. If it works on European or any other outside the, continental United States or North America, if it works, then fantastic. They have really done something good. But if it doesn't work on our end, then, for us, it's like, what's the point? The same thing goes with a P800 for you guys in Europe. Yeah, that's why companies like Marut has been, able to push their inks and their resetters. I haven't really kept track to see what's happening with the P800 over there, whether it continues to be used with third-party refillable cartridges with, auto reset chips and all that. I don't know whether that's the case. Let's see what else. George says, just curious, do dye-based inks have the same smell as pigment inks or differently? What do you mean by that? The base liquid is basically the same. So I don't go around sniffing them. I have a very bad sense of smell anyway. So something that I did notice on OEM like Chroma Optimizer or OEM Gloss Enhancer from Epson, they do have kind of a weird ammonia-like smell. Okay, that the third-party versions of Chroma Optimizer and like Gloss Optimizer do not have. They just do not have that smell. Let's see. Brandon Barra says, after getting my Pro 100 and having trouble, I was worried that I was in over my head, but your channel became my go-to source for information, and I've learned so much. Printing is very enjoyable now. Good. All it takes is for you to get past that. If there's a learning curve, I'm not gonna, deny that. Of course there is. Like with anything. My grandson was trying to get me to, Grandpa, you should play this game with me. Dude, you're 8.5 going on 20 now. And what you can do, I just don't have the eyes and the hand-eye coordination to be able to do. So yeah, for me, it would be an impossible learning curve. For him, it's like that. He can look at the game and within an hour, he's at level 20, So it's the same with printing. So once you get past that very basic set of steps that you need to follow, calibrate your printer, no, unless it's a Pro 1000, then you can do that. But you can also certify your printer by printing a standard image with it. I just had a conversation with a one-on-one consult with a young lady out in Oregon who is the owner of a Pro 1000, wants to start printing her artsy photos. And just simply because she's an experienced operator, I thought, okay, should I kind of tailor my talk with her, like realizing that she knows everything about printing? Well, no, she didn't know certain things. And so I was able to enlighten her about that. So now she knows that you're not supposed to do certain things. Other than that, it's just certifying your printer after you set it up, making sure that printer by itself can produce a good rendition of that standard image. Then you got to calibrate your monitor so that it matches when it is opening that image. That image, as you view it, has to match what the printer spit out. And I mean just with the driver and some Canon paper or Epson paper, if it's an Epson or Canon printer, of course. And you let the driver do everything, and it should work. It should work because it's going to link it to the installed ICC profiles for those particular papers because they are made for those printers. You cannot mix them. So this is Epson. So if I print with Canon paper and I pick Pro Luster because it's a luster paper, it's not going to match because it's going to use the Epson luster profile. The same thing with a Canon printer using an Epson luster paper. You pick Pro Luster, it's going to use the Canon Pro Luster ICC profile. It has no other choice. It doesn't know what else to do. So always certify your printer with a paper made for that printer. Let the driver do it. On a Canon printer, I think you choose color / manual intensity, color adjustment, something like that, and matching, and then ICM or printer matching, and that or driver matching, and that will link that paper you chose on your drop-down menu to the proper ICC profiles. It's automatic. It will choose that, and you're absolutely perfect results will come out of that. Believe me. Okay. Assuming your printer is mechanically working like it's supposed to. Now, once you establish that, then you know your printer is capable. Then you go to your monitor and you have to calibrate your monitor. You put your print next to your image being displayed, and it has to match. You're looking for color match. You're not looking necessarily for brightness match. Okay. That can be adjusted later. You're looking for match of color. Okay. So that grays look gray, not pinkish. Okay. Or greenish. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for a match of that print to your monitor. Once you get that match, your monitor is properly calibrated. Okay. All right. So it's not black and white. Let's to use a no pun intended. You have to match that monitor to your output of that printer because you cannot go back and tamper with your printer settings. You got to let your printer do its thing. Okay. Default. And then it outputs a near perfect rendition of that image. Now it's up to you to get that monitor to match it. Okay. Once you do that, then you load your images. It should do the same thing. Assuming you're very well versed with color spaces, working color spaces. So the evaluation image is ProPhoto RGB. So if you want to work strictly from raw and you're converting a raw to a PSD or a TIFF file and you're printing in Photoshop, then your working color space should also be ProPhoto RGB. That doesn't mean your printer can handle ProPhoto RGB or your monitor can display that much, but it always helps to start with the largest. And then if you have to pare it down, you will get better results than starting with sRGB color space. No. That's not a good idea. Start with a larger one. And then if it gets cut down by the system process, you're still better and ahead of yourself. Okay. I like to use Lightroom for my editing. The reason being, I don't have to take my RAWs and view them in the raw converter and then export them out. I can work directly off of my raw files. It will give me a facsimile display that I can edit 1,000 times, and every one of those steps will be recorded. It takes very little drive space, by the way. So it's not like you're creating 1,000 versions of that image. The original image is untouched. Only instructions are saved, and those instructions that apply a certain change to the image are just displayed virtually. It's just a virtual view of that result of that particular edit, in other words. And if you have QImage, so much the better. You can just go to File and export over to QImage and then print that. I rather print with QImage. And a lot of people who try it realize, oh, Jose was actually telling the truth. Yeah, I much prefer QImage for my print jobs. It works. It works. And I think I converted that person that I spoke with a little while ago. And I'll be frank with you guys. What I get for all of the publicity that I have given QImage, and if it didn't deserve it, I would not have given it. Okay, I would not have given it. I get a free update every year, about $20. Okay, so that's my reward for that. For those of you who think I'm getting paid by QImage, no, I'm not. I just get the free update. That's it. So there, I am completely transparent. I wish the whole world was like that, right? Okay. We have Brad Manga says, I currently have 25 empty OEM cartridges for the Canon Pro 10, but do not have the shoes for them. Too bad. Why did you throw them out? Can you still be used? You can, but it's difficult as hell. Okay. How should I seal them up after refilling? No clue. No clue, really. You got to have those little doohickeys. You got to have those. Okay. I don't know whether anybody sells them. How did you acquire them? Were they yours? Yeah, you should have never thrown those out. I hate to come out that way, across to you that way. But yeah, that is just something that you just never throw away. Probably you just didn't know. If you got them from some other source, then you still got to have those. There's no way you can refill them, and you can't tape them. It's a wet surface. Tape will not hold. So I need to find out if anyone is actually manufacturing those in case somebody needs them. But you must have those little end clips. Steve Kooning says, a few questions. One, my printing from Photoshop is not as sharp as Lightroom. I must have the wrong settings. Yeah, you're applying different settings for output sharpening. And the printer module in Lightroom applies output sharpening. Okay, so that's where you're getting that extra sharpness. In Photoshop, you have to manually apply it. If you don't do it, then you're not going to have that output sharpening, which really you should install. Any suggestions? I will contact Adobe. You don't have to contact anybody. It's just as simple as that. Lightroom applies a like 3 different levels of output sharpening. Whatever you have it set at, basically it's at a default most of the time. That's what it will apply, and that's why it looks a little bit sharper. The same thing with QImage. QImage automatically outputs to a certain sharpness level, and that's why you get the difference. It's not you. It's just that you haven't looked at those settings. So if you want to get the same results out of Photoshop, you have to apply some sharpening before you print. Could you repeat the programs you use for printing and conversion to black and white? Silver Effect. I don't use any of that. I used to experiment with Silver Effects. It's okay. It's okay. It allows you to simulate a lot of different types of like film looks, okay, which I don't do much of any longer, but I just convert to black and white in Photoshop or in Lightroom. That's all I need to do, really. And it allows me to, because you're still working, you're not converting to grayscale. And I forgot to tell that to the person that I was on the phone with. Actually, we were live virtually on the computer. When you have a color image, an RGB image, and you do it, I think it's option grayscale, you throw away every channel except for one. And you end up with only 255 shades of gray, 0 to 254. And then 255 is just the paper. Only that small number of shades. What does that do to, say, a sky that has a very gradual transition from semi-dark to very light at the horizon level? You will have banding because you only have so many shades to share. There's no way you can actually, blend them together. No, you will have banding. So you always get your color image and you convert it to black and white. You retain your 3 color channels. They just now represent grays, but it's going to be 255 times 255 times 255. In other words, to the third power. 60 million plus shades is what you get. Not bad compared to 225 shades. So now you're going to have the smoothest transitions, 0 banding, but it gives you the ability to actually adjust shades of gray according to what the original color was. Okay. So if you have a woman with red lipstick, you can make those lips appear a mid-gray or very light gray or very deep, almost black, without affecting anything else. If you have trees that are green, you can actually change that gray representing that green shade to a different value. So say you have something that is green and red together, but for some reason the densities are the same. They will look the same shade of gray. Okay, that's what will happen if you convert to just grayscale. Those 2 colors will not look different. They will look exactly the same shade of gray. By retaining your RGB channels, I can make the red a little bit lighter or the green a little bit deeper or lighter, vice versa. And I can then adjust each color. The sky, I can turn that sky darker, accentuate the white clouds, What are we doing? We're doing filtration like we did with panchromatic black and white film. Okay. If I wanted a beautiful sky with gorgeous fluffy clouds showing, I would install a red filter that would absorb blue and cyan, make the sky almost look almost a deep, almost black, not quite black, but very deep gray, and the clouds will remain super bright. Okay. The same could happen if I install a blue filter. Okay. It would allow blue to go through, but not red. It would absorb red and magenta and yellow and all of the other colors. So filtration you can do in Photoshop. You can also do it in Lightroom only if you retain the 3 channels. So that's what's important. Silver effects is just applying a bunch of presets, and then you can adjust those presets manually looking at your screen to see what you like. And then you can save that particular settings that you in settings, or from the very beginning you did all of your adjustments. You can save that as a setting that you give it a name, Jose's blah 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 black and white look. But yeah, I don't use any of these programs because I think I can do a better job manually in Photoshop or in Lightroom. But they're great. They're great to have. Nico says when the cartridge of the when you change the cartridge on the 8320 consumes some ink like the 15,000. Yes, they all do. They all do. Any printer that has cartridges that write on the printhead have to do that, because the minute you remove them, see, remember how the printhead has to move to like an exchange position? Well, that nozzle plate's no longer sitting on that parking station. It's exposed to air. It's exposed to air. Nothing will happen sitting there in the middle until you take a cartridge out. Take a straw, like a drinking straw, fill it full of water, and put your finger on the top opening. You can lift it above the water glass, and the liquid will not fall out, assuming it's not a very wide straw. Most straws, the water tension alone will prevent the draining of the water, but the minute you let go, it just flows right out. The same thing with a printhead. The minute you remove a cartridge, now both ends are exposed in that channel. Air gets in, ink can leak out, you name it. Okay. So when you put it back in and you close the lid and you say, I'm done, please, let me print again, it has to reprime the printhead. It just has to. Whether it needs it or not, it has to do it, because it's not going to allow you to print unless it thinks it's ready to print. N123 SE, you got to be brand new. I don't recognize you. What is the biggest difference between the Pro 1000 versus the P900? They're totally different animals. We can spend all night talking about that. The similarities: 17-inch printers, okay? 10 colors, 12 colors. One can use a roll, one cannot. One can print very long, the P900. Canon cannot. Lots of things, but the Canon has many advantages. Internal colorimeter, not colorimeter, internal densitometer. It can do an internal calibration of the printer itself so that it matches what the factory intended it to be. Not so with the P900. Again, day and night differences, and again, totally different animals as far as their features and capabilities are. Both printers absolutely wonderful. Okay. If I had the money, both of them would be sitting in my stable back there. That's something I'm going to be discussing in a video. It's going to be a long ass video. Okay. So get ready. People who complain that I talk a lot, they're going to welcome this one with open arms, because I'm going to let it all out. Okay. We're going to talk about as far as the printers that I have a vast amount of experience with, because I cannot talk about other printers that I haven't even put my fingers on. Okay, how could I possibly talk about that? So the P900, okay, I'll have to go over what's reported. Okay, the specifications on the ads from Epson, that's what I'm going to rely on. And then I'm going to give you my 2 cents or 3 cents worth say for instance, comparing a P800 with the Pro 1000. Then we'll do the same with a 13-inch, say Epson R3000. I don't have the P600, so I cannot do that. The R3000 compared to, say, a Pro 10 from Canon, that kind of thing. Okay? You cannot say this one over this one. Okay? You got to look at your needs, look at what your preferences are, and if this particular printer provides that need that you have, then you choose that one. But it's not necessarily because it's better than the other one. Okay? Output wise, you can probably put the two images aside. They're going to be slightly different. There's always going to be a difference between output from various different kinds of printer models. People think that they should output identical. No, they don't. If they did, then what would be the need to have different models of printers? We could just get by with one model because they all output the same. No, they don't. They don't. So some printers have a certain quality. They output with a certain look, and you have to take that into, account when you choose a printer over another printer. They will not be the same output. Sorry, I missed one. Mammal funny. Mammal funny. A question: when printing faces, most of the time printer prints dark shadows on forehead. What? How? Unless there's a shadow on the forehead. I don't get your question. I don't know exactly what you're referring to. Printer with shadows on the forehead, unless they exist. And it shouldn't be dark. I mean, you got to remember when you look at your monitor, all your middle gray zones on an image will look much brighter than they do on paper. They do. Paper relies on reflectivity, and the monitors transmit from the back. So they're going to look super bright. They're going to look more open. Dynamic range is going to be this huge compared to a print. Okay. A print compresses your dynamic range. The monitor really doesn't. It actually shows it pretty well displayed, let's just say. So let me see. Let me open up that standard image. We'll pop it over there, and I'll look at those kids, my favorite kids in that image. Let's see. Test. Where are you? Oh, wrong side. Pictures. Silly. Okay. Test images and standard image. We'll close this. Pop this over there. And we'll share that screen. All right. These kids right here. So are you saying, are the foreheads lit so that they have shadows on them? As you can see, there's no shadows on the foreheads, only on the side where the key light illuminates. On the opposite side, you would normally have a bit of shadow. So I don't know if that's what you mean. If there are shadows, these shadows are going to appear darker on paper than they do on a transmitted backlit monitor. Always will be the case. Okay. That's what people just cannot accept that fact. That happens. It's just part of the way things are when it comes to imaging. Let me find that. There we go. We'll pop that there for now. Okay. Let's hit the next question here or comment. Money. Yes. Let's get a lot of money coming in this year so we can buy a new printer. Jose, do you know anything about ink that erases itself in the microwave? No, I don't. That's weird. Same ink as Rocketbook. You got me there. That was on a show, Shark Tank. Oh, okay, I remember that. I remember that show. I want to put that ink on Eco Tank. Why? Anything? No, I have no clue. No clue about those. Any ink that will do that. Wow. How does that erase from? Is it from the radiation or just heating? I really don't know. That's a new one past me. See that? I don't know everything. Let's look this. Let's look that up. Rocketbook. Huh? Let me see if I can Google that. Rocketbook ink. Is that it? I mean, if it's oh, all I can see is like pens and markers, but not bottled ink. If it's a dye type ink, then you can probably run it on an EcoTank printer. Shouldn't be a problem. Weird. Chehapi, IR. Jose, please explain which printer is best for sublimation printings. 4 colors or 6 colors? Ah, that's a good one. Okay, let me see if I can find that one example that I always show. Hang on 1 second. Make sure I put it away someplace where I could find it. Okay. So you would think, right? Let me clean it up on my shirt here. You would think that more colors, and usually that's the thinking. More colors allows you to print more tonalities, a wider range of tones, right? You wouldn't think that a 3 color printer with black or 4 color printer with black would allow you to print very, very defined, I guess you can say, color images with lots of tonalities. But turns out that in sublimation, that is the case. Okay. Now, I can go as high as you said 4 to what? 4 to 6. I can go as high as 8. See, I have a set of sublimation inks from Precision Colors with 8 colors. I can load my R3000 with it right now and use it. But would it be better than my 1100 with just RGB? Nah, I'm sorry. Cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. It works in RGB, is what I'm trying to say. You think it would be better results wise? Well, it depends on your substrate that you use. So I'm going to show you this image that someone sent me, and it's printed on second class sublimation aluminum. You can see the monitor. I'm going to tilt this so that you cannot see the monitor. Let me see how well I can do this. Again, it's so glossy. It's like wet. It's almost like a wet sheet of aluminum. Look at that. But I want you to look at the tones. Let me see if I can get that. That has, as far as I'm concerned, a maximum amount of tonality. I mean, I don't think I could get that on paper. All right. So this is 4 color. And I printed this on a cheap, basically a junk Workforce 1100. It has 3 cartridges, yellow, cyan, magenta, and 2 black cartridges for, printing on, say, text on regular plain paper. So that's one printer that I could sacrifice and use for sublimation. It has to be Epson. It has to be one that you can use refillable cartridges in. And once you dedicate it to that, once that ink enters the print head, you cannot go back to photo black. To photo inks. That's what I've been told. Okay. Maybe you can, maybe you cannot. Maybe you could flush it and go back to regular photo inks, but that's fine. Mine's already dedicated to that. So will going to 8 colors improve this? I don't see how I can get better than this. This is with 4. It's okay. Now, I can use sublimation inks on a dye ink printer from Epson, or do I have to use a pigment ink printer from Epson? Who knows? The 1100 uses pigment, so I cannot say for sure. So 6 color usually comes in the dye ink flavor, if you will. And I don't know whether you can run sublimation inks on that. Maybe you can, maybe you cannot. Now, What I would, if you already have your printer, then so be it. You need to think what you want to do, what you want to do. If you have a 4-color printer, you can convert that. If you have a 6-color printer, again, you can convert that if you can use sublimation inks in a dye-based uh, type printer. Or if you don't have the printer yet, just go to eBay and type down on the search bar sublimation printers. You'll get a bunch of already pre-modified, ready to be used with chipless quite often printers. It'll be the workforce variety, it'll be the XP variety, and they'll be ready to go, ready to be used, loaded already with inks. If it's a sys type unit, maybe that comes with that. Again, the choices are there. You will spend $300 something for most of them, but it'll save you all the work. You don't have to do a darn thing. You can begin printing right away. What paper do I use for transferring? I use something called A sub. A sub. I have it on my Amazon affiliate page right now. And I recommend Precision Color Sublimation inks. They work. They work. You see it right there. And I got a ton of other examples in that other room left of me. So you can print on many different types of materials. You can print on mugs that are already coated with polyester. These are sublimatable mugs. And so, yeah, many things. T-shirts. You've seen me wearing my T-shirts in the past. I used to do, oh, here we go. I even have a mouse pad that I printed on. Eat, sleep, print, and repeat. And these you can purchase already coated, ready to go to be used on sublimation. So many different products and substrates out there. If you're just now getting into this, I would suggest going to conde.com or Conde TV, that is CONDE.TV, and they have a channel that they have weekly videos on and live demonstrations, and it's really neat. It's really neat. I used to, religiously watch them, learn a lot from them. That's how I learned how to do this. Okay. And you need a good heat press. The heat press is the item that you should not skimp on. Okay. Don't buy a cheapo $190 heat press because it'll burn out in a matter of a couple of months. Period. You need to spend some money, and then that will mean that you will get a printhead, not a printhead, jeez. You will get a heat press that has a very even temperature on that heating plate. Because if the temperature varies, you'll get different results. Okay, different results. You're relying on heat to sublimate from solid to a gas, which then binds to the polyester layer that you're going to heat. So you have also other variables. You got many different types of transfer paper out there, printer, inks, and then you get to your editing, of course, your settings for your printer driver, and then you go to your heat press. You got temperature, you have pressure, and you have time that you press. And also the ambient temperature will have an effect on your results or your ability to be consistent. In other words, it's kind of a crapshoot most of the time. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Purchase QImage 3 weeks ago from your recommendations. It is a great piece of software. It is. It really is. And it has so many other functions that just kind of complement your printing workflow. I was telling that person I spoke with, and I used her as an example. I made a layout for her, and then I saved that layout, gave it a name that was specific to her, and then I closed QImage, opened it back up, basically did my search, pulled up that job, and it found the image that I used, the printer that I used, the settings that I used, the paper that I used, the ICC profile that I used, every single aspect of that print job that came out perfect was saved for a future date. Okay. And you can come back a year later, as long as your image still lives in that same hard drive and you got those same printers operating, you can redo that job and it should come out identical to the previous, unless you've changed things. If you change inks or whatever, or the paper is not what you originally had, sure, you will have some changes. QImage is so slow. What do you mean so slow? I'm not doing editing in QImage. I'm just printing in QImage. I don't know what you mean by slow. Nothing slow as far as I'm concerned. I always do my editing inside Lightroom and I export to QImage. All I do in QImage is making sure that I got the correct layout and the correct settings, and then I save that. And it will save that or that exported image as well for you. So the next time you try to reprint it, you can just recall it. Adriana Vinas, hello desde Providencia. ¿Providencia está dónde? ¿En qué país? What country? George says, it is said that dye inks can produce more vibrant colors than pigment inks, but the color monkey gamut of the Pro 100 is smaller compared to that of the Pro 1000 using the same paper. That's because you got more colors. Okay. You have more colors, I believe. And of course, you're comparing the Pro 1000. Okay. And actually, PC's Signature Edition is an improvement over OEM. I have actually shown that to be the case. All right. Yeah, don't forget, Pro 1000 has blue ink. And if anything needs that blue ink, it will be used. And you will get a true blue on that print. Printing the same exact image in something like the P800, that deep dark blue may not come out like it shows up on your monitor. Okay. Gosh, I got to dig up that video and I got to post it on my Facebook group and you guys can see what I'm talking about. It was amazing. It floored me when I saw that. Harold Goldberg from Sunny Richmond, Pro 100. Nice to have you here with us again, Harold. Yes, they are all mine. Brad Manga says, and yes, big bonehead for throwing them away. Just didn't realize I could refill them until I found your channel. Yeah, that's a mistake, my friend. I really don't know what to offer you as far as a solution. Really not much. And in fact, right now they're dried up. The bags have expanded. You cannot get ink in them at all unless you really spend about an hour per cartridge. It's a pain. I've done it. Moral to that story is never throw those things away. Maybe you can 3D print them. I don't think so. They have a silicone gasket that you have to have. It's not just a shape. And they have to seal perfectly. Charles says, Octo Inkjet has clips for sale. There you go. There you go. That is a good source for many strange, almost unavailable things. They seem to have them. They also have, let me see here. They've also taken these and done this to them. You see that little needle adapter? And if you look at this side, you see where the little stubby needle comes through that gasket. So you pop this on a Pro 100 CLI 42 cartridge and you pump water ink with maybe some Windex, literally pump it in and suck it back out. You can reverse flush that way. So you put one of those on this, or you buy one from Octo Ink, and you can then collapse that bag. Once you collapse that bag, then you're able to actually still even use this to flush your cartridge if you need to do it with just plain water. And also pump that bag full up with ink. using this adapter. It'll take you like 5 seconds to do the actual fill up process. I've also got that on video. If you go back and look at my Pro 10 playlist, you will find everything. I got probably several hundred in there, so you have to kind of sift through the titles and look for something that will answer that question. I really don't have any more time to spend rearranging that set of playlists. There are up to 60 different subject matters right now, so it's all there. Just spend a little time looking for it. Great idea. I will look into that. Yeah, check them out and see if they have them. Again, it's not something that's readily available, okay? And if they are third-party made, then yeah, then they are. But if they are the originals, then it's just a matter of how many he can get. Just like Rick Johnson with his Pro 100 CLI 42 cartridges that he processes for you guys. In other words, he modifies them and flushes them and then dries them and gets them ready to go with one of these nice clips. Without this, of course. Ready to go, perfect plug system, $60. But again, he has to have access to original cartridges, and apparently he has a source that is pretty regular for him. So Kellyanne Olikar. I want photo printer, lab quality printer, low printing costs. Which printer is best? Well, none of them are going to be low cost. Okay, it costs to photo print at home. It does. So that doesn't tell me much. I need to know what your maximum size will be. I need to know what kind of prints you're planning on printing. You know what I mean? It's like asking me what car you should buy. How many models are there? Like what camera you should buy. Again, how many models are there? So I don't know what your actual intentions are as far as photo printing goes. So I need more detail. You can ask right here. People will chime in and tell you what they own and if that's a good choice for them or not. A printer that is large with large cartridges is more economical to run because your milliliters of ink will cost less money per, okay? Whereas a small printer like this one has relatively small cartridges, not a lot of ink in there. So they will require refilling or replacement a lot more often than, say, something like this. This is 80 ml. This is 80 ml of ink. So those two types of cartridges are more economical to run because not only do you have a lot more ink, you will be replacing ink cartridges a lot less often than, say, on this little printer right here. Okay, that's going to be a lot. That's going to be every cartridge has to be refilled like every month, depending on my printing rate. Okay, depending how much I print, or sooner or later. It depends on the weights because those cartridges are opaque and we cannot see through the case. So we don't know how much ink to put in. We have to utilize a scale to weigh them. So again, I need to know what size prints you're going to make, what kind of papers you want to use, what type of or genre of prints, fine art, regular snapshots. Are you going to print posters? Are you going to print, small prints? You have to tell me that. Ramon Lepage, can you explain fine art media rendered? Why fine art media is rendered as 600 by 600 DPI, making a rip from Mirage? I don't know how to use Mirage rip. Sorry, I do not. I think it's because the driver will take your image and then res it, change it. In other words, to a 600 by 600. In other words, you will have a square inch of print will have 600 pixels and 600 pixels. I don't know why it does that. I'm not very familiar with those rips. Anything above 300 on a Canon printer, it's probably more than sufficient. 600 is like maximum practically. At that point, beyond that, the dots just blend together and become mush. So there's no really separation of detail. So again, I have never used, now that you mentioned that, you bring up a really good point that until just a short while ago, there were no RIPs for Canon printers. Okay, they were only available for Epson printers. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because now if anyone's interested in getting into printing with a RIP, that means you just don't use your driver any longer. Okay, you're using the RIP, the raster image processor. That's what you're printing from. I don't think they use profiles either. I'm not sure about that. So I guess a totally different workflow. And if you can learn it, people swear by it. Okay, it's really the best way to print. RMS, I like that picture, from Amsterdam. Epson 3880 and Canon Pro 1000. Okay, I have both of those printers. Excellent. Roby, Germany, P900. Awesome. Everybody in Europe has a P900. We don't yet. We can't even smell one. They're just not available. I don't understand what the heck is going on. We got 74 people. My wife is going to fall over when I tell her that. She's always asking me. Yeah. So you're the one that asked about sublimation. So yeah, you can buy, if you don't have a printer yet, save yourself the headaches. Just buy one off of eBay already set up, really. If you do have one, then no problem. You'll have to do the setup yourself. You need a set of brand new refillable cartridges. You cannot use the ones that were previously used for photo ink. That's not going to work too well. Roberto Lorman from Brazil, Canon Pro 1000. All righty. Tate USZ 12 on my MacBook Pro QMH prints faster than the printer. When the printer, a Pro 10, is not set to as a network printer. Okay, I'm using USB all the time anyway, so I don't know about what happens when you have your printer connected via network cable. I have no problem with this one. This one's on pure Wi-Fi right now, and my modem is right here, so I guess it's not an issue. If it was upstairs, maybe in the other end of the house, possibly would have some issues with data transmission, and people sometimes will experience a print that like stops printing midway or partially. And so yeah. Oh, I forgot to say, gosh, wake up, Jose. 15,000, okay, with that firmware, that initial firmware that forces you to start in the off mode, in other words, power off, and you go to a service mode type situation. I used the one that was suggested because people were having problems very similar, if not identical, to what Precision Colors was having, where it would install the firmware, but you could not install the activation code, because it wouldn't see the printer, even though it was plugged in via USB. He wouldn't see it. So he couldn't get past that. Well, I managed to do it with the second option of that firmware. Okay. So Mike is running with that other firmware. He actually got it to work eventually. I am running mine on that second option. He's running on the original firmware. I'm running on the second option. Okay. He started getting a print with just gibberish. In other words, if you were to print in Klingon language from Star Trek, that's what he was getting. So nothing but data, if you will. And I don't know whether he resolved that or not. I have not experienced that problem yet. Hopefully will not. Again, the only difference is that he used the original firmware being used. Okay. I don't know whether that's an issue or not. Now, I have had that happen to me on the P800. Okay. And I solved it by turning the printer off removing all the cables, unpowering it, plugging it back in, and it didn't do that anymore. So I don't know whether it is in this particular case with the 15,000. I don't know whether it's really related to a particular firmware or not, but more of a random problem that can crop up because I have seen it. I have actually, you know, seen that happen. Okay, witnessed it personally. So, and I try to only talk about things that I witnessed or experienced personally, and not, secondhand information or hearsay from people. But I believe what he tells me, so I can take it with a not with a grain of salt, but with all the truth that he would not lie to me. In other words, on my MacBook Pro, yeah, we saw that earlier. Is not set as a network printer. Yeah, I don't know whether that would differ in speed. QImage to me works flawlessly, just totally flawlessly. All right. Peter says, I got a set of clips for the Pro 10 as part of a refill kit with red setter. They look original. Do you mean this type of shape? Because the originals look like this. And these cannot be clipped on. You have to rubber band them in place. Because once you snap these off, that's it. There's no way to re-snap them back on. These you can snap back on. Gary says, do you store your bulk bottles of PC ink Pro 100 with the needle scabbard on, or do you remove the needle? Yeah, with the scabbard on. Yeah. No problem. This room back here stays about 70 degrees. I mean, winter and summer. So no problem. Just leave the caps on. You'll be good to go. I don't have a scabbard for this type of bottle here, but yeah, the same thing goes with this as well. I have the other one. Oh, here we go. I got them right here. Just like this. Okay. Once you get this cap on, installed properly so that you don't have any leaks, just pop that on. And then when I go to reuse them, I usually take an alcohol pad and just wipe the stem. That way it will prevent me. If I accidentally touch it with my grubby hands, full of, possible aerobes and fungus spores, they're all everywhere. Fungal spores are everywhere. So don't get too worried about that. But you got to have a fairly good clean working environment. So just alcohol swab the tips, and you should be fine. Just don't touch them with your fingers. I think we have him already done. He is thanking. Okay. Da-da-da-da. Yep. I'm going back to make sure I don't skip anyone. All right. Okie doke. All right. I recently purchased my Pro 1000 thanks to your recommendations. I was a bit skeptical buying it in 2020, but the results are amazing. Do you think they'll come up with a new Pro 1000? That's the scuttlebutt. I don't know. I really do not know. What could they add? What can they do to improve it? People are hoping and wishing for a roll adapter for it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. Even if they did, that would be just something simple like the, P800, P900 roll adapter. Is just basically, it's a very well designed, beautifully designed unit, very hefty. Whether it's worth $250, that's up to you to decide. But the driver is what controls the ability to basically run print after print after print on roll without. And basically, what you're doing when you print with roll is you're telling the internal sensors, don't worry that you have never seen the end edge, which is, it's just, that's what the sensor expects to see, the end, the trailing edge of paper, so it can eject it. It doesn't do that. So the driver is programmed. When you choose roll printing and say banner mode on an Epson printer like the P800, you can just print image after image on that same, you know, 20 feet of paper or whatever, until you decide to cut. And then you say cut. It will advance the result of, say, 10 prints, and it'll print a cut line for you. And you use your scissors. That's it. Or a knife, a blade. I use a blade, a razor blade, and I cut my sheet off, and then I retract. I say done, and it retracts it back. It doesn't retract it back so that the edge goes under the plate and it stays outside. In other words, beyond the plate, and it's ready to be used again. So there's no need to ever remove that roll as long as you're printing on the same surface paper for the rest of it. You know, the 100 foot or whatever you have, then you can just continue to print, and you can do consecutive prints that way. You can lay them out on QImage has a fantastic roll printing option, which allows you to print without having to set a size. Because normally, say I want to print several sheets, several images, that is, I would have to normally create, say, like a 17 by 37-inch print. And then I would have to fit the images within that layout and print it, and then make another, 17 by 36 or 37-inch print, and then load some more images inside. No, you can just load them and keep loading them and keep printing. Okay. And then when you're done, hit cut. It will print that cut line. It will advance enough for you to be able to then get your scissors under there and cut that sheet off. Okay. So it's really okay. I mean, it's not going to have an internal cutter for you, but it will allow you to print on roll. The Pro 1000 will not. Okay. So whether they add that feature, that would be a seller. I'm telling you. 17-inch printer with roll adapter, with internal calibrator, with user replaceable wasting cartridge, with 12 colors or 12 inks, one chroma optimizer, of course, so 11 and 1, the ability to be able to refill those cartridges easily, and maybe even somebody will develop chips, and unless they do away with you being able to disable ink monitoring, you can print on the Canon printers with third-party inks. You just have to do a little bit more work and keep track of your levels and such. Okay. But yeah, you can continue doing that. Now, people ask me, so what? Oh my gosh, what's going to happen if I disable ink monitoring? Will it run cleaning cycles every time I print, regardless of how often or how little? Well, if you don't print often, it's going to do cleaning cycles as it normally does today. Okay. Normally, that's what it does. That's how it stays clean. Okay. Or will it run just say I print every 10 minutes, will it do a clean cycle every 10 minutes? No. The answer is no. It will not do that. So disabling ink monitoring is something you take under your own responsibility, because Canon says, okay, fine. So you want to use those last milliliters of ink. I'm going to allow you to do that, but you're going to probably screw up in the process. See, they're going to wash their hands off of what they consider your stupidity, because they think you should not do that. Well, we know better. So we disable ink monitoring, and now it's our responsibility to keep track of those cartridges and their weights. Okay. You can't see through this. I don't know if there's ink in here unless I shake it or weigh it. 32 grams means it's bone dry. Anything above that means I still have ink. I can take those cartridges out and weigh them anytime I want. I pop them back in, I close the lid, nothing happens. You know why nothing happened? Because I never removed something from the printhead itself. Okay, the printhead never moved away from that parking station. So neither air got in through the nozzle plate or air got in from the top where the cartridge attaches to the printhead. You see? So you never perform that situation, if you will. You only remove the cartridge from the front. Nothing happens downstream. It stays the same. No air, no aspiration, no nothing. Okay? So that's why it's simple. The simplest thing, and he and I are trying to kind of get together on this and do it. We're going to get, I got several sets of these. I'm going to prepare a set with a 5/32 inch hole here and a plug. Insert my bottle, put this over a scale, and weigh it as I fill. If I'm not careful, I'm going to have ink all over myself, okay? So you got to be careful. Or continue using the vacuum or pressure method to refill these. That's actually the most reliable method. And then disable ink monitor. I still have some chips that I got to use up. So this batch, I'm going to continue using the chips. But after this, I'm going to go ahead and prep some cartridges for manual refilling from the back with a plug. Because why would that not work? The other larger family of printers from Canon that use big cartridges that sit vertically in their slots, they have refillable cartridges, and all it is just a cartridge with an unscrewable type plug. And you just put a funnel literally and pour ink in, and you watch the ink because they're transparent. Okay, these are not. So these would have to be very carefully filled so that you don't go over. Now, if you run them to say maybe 40 grams of weight and 32 is empty, then you can deduce how much ink you have as long as you know what a full one weighs. Okay, then you can do a little math and just load that much on your syringe, whatever you need to fill it, load that much in your syringe, and then you can inject it in there through that hole and then plug it up. That's it. These are not pressurized. They're gravity fed. There's no difference in the atmospheric pressure and internal pressure. It is the same. So you can get away with that in that case. Do the caps have an O-ring? No, these do not. Okay. The larger bottles did come with an O-ring. I think these right here. Let me see. But then again, no, these do not have one either. There were some other bottles that had an O-ring, and people would have a hard time getting those O-rings aligned, and they were getting leaks everywhere, and they were blaming PC. And of course, it was no one's fault but theirs, because they did not set that O-ring in place correctly. So they had the O-ring crooked, and of course, it would not seal, and they would get ink all over themselves. These do not have O-rings. They actually self-sealing. Self-sealing. Pastor Maldonator. I know a Maldonado. I found RC paper that they claim it have UV protection and antioxidation include. Do you think it is true? We have mostly Chinese brands here. I've never heard of that. That would be quite a breakthrough if it was true. Can you provide me with a link via email? Here's my email. I will post my email. And if you have that, you can send it to me and I will take a look at it. Make sure I typed it correctly. Okay, here we go. So yeah, if you have a link to that, just email it to me. You cannot post links here unless you remove. I think if you remove the like the HTTP portion of it, you can probably post it. Try that. Try that, see if it'll let you do it. But basically, you know what? I just spray coat my prints that I want to protect. And it's just as easy. But if you have a paper that will come already pre-protected, that would be fantastic. What's your viewpoint on the Pro 200? Is it worth upgrading from the Pro 100. I went through that a couple of live streams ago, and I did like a few of the improvements that were made on it. And but again, to go from my current Pro 100 to a P, to a Pro 200, just because, probably not. If I didn't have a Pro 100, then yeah, sure. But then remember, you're paying full price for these nowadays. They will no longer be those giant rebates that we were getting. Um, People that do some crafting, they do a lot of like a scrapbook type work, and they are working on odd size square papers. They have added those sizes as standard, so you can actually print borderless using those 12 by 12 and 8 by 8, and I think even 5 by 5. I don't know exactly how many of those square sizes of papers. These are the papers that are very popular in the scrapbooking community, and so that would be fantastic. That would be fantastic. But not if you're just making your common, photographs and you already have a Pro 100. Maybe not. Well, let me digress on that. They did change something, and it's something that is not a physical, feature or anything like that. They upgraded the magenta ink, not red, the magenta ink, so that standard image, okay, the one with the cherries, no, the strawberries, they actually look red. The normal Pro 100 with OEM inks does not produce a red strawberry. It produces a slightly orange strawberry. Precision Colors noticed that about a year ago. It's been about a year already with the signature edition inks, and they had that adjusted at the lab. And if you look at one OEM standard image, one Precision Color signature edition standard image, the OEM has orangey strawberries, and the PC SE has red strawberries. And then later on, he updated the cyan as well. That's what they did on the P200. They virtually show you that in their claims, their ads, that the original P or Pro 100 did not produce a true red, and their new inkset now does. Too little, too late. Well, if I'm a Pro 100 user using PCSE, then yes, too little, too late. If you have never used PCSE inks and you don't have a Pro 100, then by all means get it. My problem, if it is a problem, is that I have two sitting inside unopened in boxes yet, and I got those for like $100 each. Ridiculous, right? Yeah. I don't know what else they have done. They introduced some anti-skew technology, meaning that I think what it might do is similar to what printers do when you are loading a roll. Okay. You want to have a front edge that is actually perpendicular, right angles, I should say, to the edges on the side. Okay. Either right or left. So if you are loading a brand new roll of paper on your P800, I would not take it for granted that the front edge is 90 degrees to the edges, the side edges, the lateral edges. I would use something like a rotor trimmer and then trim my front edge. That way, when I load it, it's actually at right angles to the side. You push it in, the sensor sees it, and it advances it a little bit. Now, what it'll do when you press load, it will advance that paper out several inches. And that sensor is looking at that edge. It is actually detecting that edge position. As the paper advances, if you skew it a little bit, that edge is going to start moving either this way or that way. The sensor will detect that. The sensor doesn't want to see any movement of that edge in the next 4 or 5 inches of travel. Once it determines that it's not moving at all, not even a thou, then it will accept that and it will let you continue printing. I think that's what it's doing. Possibly after it starts to print, or maybe prior to printing, it will make that paper load a little bit forward, a little bit back, and it will detect that edge and it will adjust. It will adjust it by how? The rollers. It will change the way the rollers are grabbing, or maybe the advance rate. And you'll end up with a unskewed result. And that's important. That's important if you have very narrow borders. If you have a 1/4 inch border and it's going to skew a 1/16 of an inch, you're going to end up with a crooked border, right? So you want that. That's a good addition to that printer. The Pro 300 also incorporated that as well as, and I think maybe the new Canon printers also have that incorporated. Possibly, I'm not sure. 07 satellites. How do you empty ink from the needle when you have squeezy cap on and some ink will stay there and dry? Actually, how could it stay there? You squeeze. Okay, this is just water. You see that? And you let go. The ink retracts. Okay. Unless you, I don't know how you would do that, but I have not had any problems. And even if you did, you have the scabbard on. It's not going to dry. Air cannot get to it. And if it does, just run it under a hot water faucet. That's all you have to do. I have not had a problem. I have had ink in bottles for, good Lord, how long? Years. Okay, and not a problem with drying. I can always get ink flow. On some of your videos, you have your ink bottles in nice black carousel. Yeah, that's something somebody made for me on a 3D printer. And basically it holds these. Okay, this diameter bottle. It's really neat. They made that for me, and they also made a rack where I can load my cartridges upside down so that I can fill my Pro 10 cartridges that way. So it's got enough for 10 slots. I put all the cartridges there, and it's a little bit scary because you better be very sure you got the correct colors lined up and the cartridges are lined up to match that lineup. Just recently, somebody contacted me that they put, I think it was the regular cyan on the photo cyan cartridge, and they wanted to know what to do. Well, you got to flush it. How do you flush? Talking about Pro 10 cartridges, as we're just talking now. How do you flush one of these cartridges? Inside is a bag. It is actuated by this metallic. I don't know if you can see inside this translucent side. Look at how well made this cartridge is. There's a diaphragm blade, and it's spring loaded, and that keeps the bag either expanded or contracted depending on your amount of ink that's in there. If you do this, imagine this. You do this right underneath that sponge. It's wet. Okay, so surface tension alone keeps the bag from expanding out, and air doesn't get in. Really, it's amazing. So how would you flush this? If I needed to flush this, I would have to make or buy one of those little adapters, such as this. Replace it, attach a syringe to it with water, push in water, suck the water out with the ink. You would eventually collapse the bag, remove it, squirt it out, load it with fresh water, repeat over and over until you get nothing but clear water coming out. Suck out all of the water. Okay, then you're going to have a few drops of water inside that bag. Okay, so take a little bit of that third-party ink, pump it in, give it a shake. Shake, 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 shake. Suck that ink out. You can hold it this way. That way all of the ink will gravitate toward the bottom. Suck the ink out, and now fill it with real ink. Okay, that will keep that final load of ink practically free of water. It'll be like 0.0000 something water. It will not really matter. So that's how you flush them. But you need to make that adapter. Otherwise, there's no way for you to flush them. For the guy that has the extra cartridges, okay, and those are dried up inside, you need to flush them. You need to create or buy one from Octo Inc. And of course, also the clips, and just process all of those cartridges, okay? And then fill them just 5 ml each, shake it inside. That's just to absorb any residual water that might be left, okay? And from now on, always keep those caps on, okay? And always refill your cartridges when they need to, okay? Not a week later, but the minute you take them out and you replace it with your filled ones, take those cartridges you took out, top them off, and if one of them is empty, top it off immediately and keep the caps on them, and then store them in the upright position, just like this, with the cap facing downward. That way, that sponge remains wet all the time. Okay, that's very critical. Yeah, where did I find that? Again, somebody made it for me, and I wish I could remember who the heck it was, because it was really nice. Something that should be sold. Now, you could buy similar things like that in stores like the Container Store that are made for kitchen use, for having different oils and things like that in a carousel. But again, that was custom made, so it really is the best way to go. And I do appreciate that. All right. Another question. I am very new with printers. Canon Pro 1000 have 2400 by 1200 DPI, and Epson has P900 with 7760 by 1440. Okay, that's all baloney anyway. So don't worry about it. That is just how many dots can be blended. Epson requires 360 dots per inch. Canon requires 300 or 600, and 360 or 720. So the second number, okay, is just the so-called native resolution. So that would be 300, 600, 1200, right? So a maximum 1200 dots in this direction. The 24 are interpolated. Basically, they're just piled up. It's just printing over existing dots. Okay, so it's not really printing 2400 individual dots. It's going over that same area and applying another layer of dots. So this is a little misleading. Don't think you're getting real, honest resolution, printing resolution, meaning dot wise. Okay, you're not really getting that. With the same thing with the Epson printers. So 720 times 2, right? It's 1440. So you get maximum 1440 horizontal dots. And again, those are also printed over. The maximum you can print is something like what? Just the standard, what do you call it? Let's see. Oh, I'm getting a warning. The reason I'm looking up, I'm getting a warning or a reminder from my calibrator software to recalibrate my monitor again. And we'll do that afterwards. So yeah, these numbers just simply mean how many total dots are dithered. That's it. So it's like if you were to print with a marker and just create dots, at some point you want to make an area a little bit more smoother, so you're going to pile some more dots in there. You're going to blend them in. That's what it's doing. But really, the maximum it can do is 600 on a Canon and 720 on an Epson printer. It's just piling on more dots. It's just overlapping the same area with more dots. When you use that high quality, okay, that's what it's doing. It's just printing over areas that are already printed and laying more dots down to give you the appearance of more detail. At some point, again, depending on your paper type, glossy paper has very little dot gain, so the dots will not spread and then blend into surrounding dots. Okay, matte paper has a greater amount of dot gain or spread, so you cannot use these super high resolutions. Okay, you got to throttle it down because it'll actually look worse. It will actually look worse. Some of the drivers don't even allow you to print at certain resolutions with matte paper. Taking out the cartridges often to weigh them will that not damage the contacts after a while because the needles from the printer side enter the rubber stops from the cartridge again and again. Well, what are we referring to? The 15,000? They don't have spigots. It's not like these. You're talking about this type of cartridge, okay? Right? So, yeah, that would be the case. What about this one? See, that would be the case. That O-ring will last, I don't know, 100, at least 100 removals and reinsertions. At some point, they begin to wear out, and you might end up with some leaky cartridges. At that point, you replace the cartridges. But with the contact only type cartridges like these, there's no chance to do that. These are by contact only. So are the 15,000. Nothing is mating, if you will, with the cartridge. It's just passive. It's just kissing. Okay? It's just a kiss. It's not a mate. So there's no O-rings to wear out or any such thing. Epson 3880 using Red River 88-pound polar mat. Red River's website says paper thickness is 16 mil. Red River PDF says to set the paper thickness in the driver to 4. Okay. Yeah, they give you that information so that you get the settings correctly. Just because it says to use, for instance, a photo mat choice, that photo mat choice may be for a thinner paper, so you have to go and manually adjust the thickness of the gap. Driver option for paper thickness is in ml units. So if I set the driver option to 4, that means this seems confusing. How does 16 mil relate to? Yeah, I know. Hey, what can I say? The people who design the drivers. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. That can be very confusing if you're working in mil and then someone else is working on mm. Jesse Sternberg says, thank you for your videos. Just bought a Pro 10 off of Craigslist, and your channel has been immensely helpful. All right. Hopefully that'll work out for you. The Pro 10s are going to become a little bit more scarce as time goes by. So if you can find Pro 100s, Pro 10s at this point, I mean, they're the only two that are left that basically allow you to use whatever third-party option you want to use without any problem at all. I have to wonder whether Red Setter is actually working on the new Canon models. See if they can beat that chip. Greetings to you as well. A little bit of rumor, not humor. I need some humor though. Rumor here. You think a new Pro 1000 is coming, or would I comfortably order Pro 1000 tomorrow? I have not heard a word. And I think these last couple of years, have they even had the Consumer Electronics shows? I don't believe they have. Maybe last year they had. I don't know if they're going to have one this year. So again, that's where all of these companies unveil their new products. Last year, there were more drone stuff than printer stuff. Ray says, what will the best printer for just stickers? I was thinking of a Epson. Yeah, buy just something that is just like a letter size printer, 8.5 by 11. That's all you need, because those sheets come in that size. So don't overspend. All you need is a regular printer. Don't worry. And those printers, the surface of those stickers are not really photographically coated. They're coated for inkjet, but it's not for photo quality type printing. Yeah, everything's hard to get by, hard to get now. Just go to your local shops and see if you can find something that's letter size and at least, four colors is more than you really need. That's fine. Magenta, yellow, cyan, and black. That's all you need. Maybe you can get a magenta, yellow, cyan, photo black, and then a pigment black, just like the Canon 8320, the TS 8320 is that way. You have six. You have, I believe, is it six or five? Yeah, yellow, cyan, magenta. Actually has blue, and then it has photo black, and it has also the pigment black. Not bad. That's actually pretty good. That should be a really good choice for you. And again, you could actually, if you get really good at it, you can refill it. We're going to be doing that pretty soon. As soon as my wife tells me, yeah, I'm running out of ink. Casper says, hello, Jose. What's your thought on the 8350, 8320 print quality color? Excellent. Excellent. Okay. That's what I think about it. And it has really nice functionality as well. We are loving it. And it's only like $149 here in the US. 64 people and only 49 likes. Well, that's up to the people. We cannot force them to do that. I had 78 just a while ago, so people have dropped out. I guess they just don't want to learn how to do that waste ink reset, do they? Okay. Okay. Dirk says, I am talking about the Canon Pro 2000. Okay, what were you saying? That was quite a while ago, Dirk. So you know me, I forget within a couple of minutes. And I cannot find you. I cannot find you. So remind me again what you were discussing. Let me try again to try to find you here. Here we go. Okay. Yeah. No problem at all. No problem. You will not have, well, let's see. Yeah, those do use it. Okay. If you are using that type of printer, I thought we were talking about a lesser level printer. So yeah, nah, I really wouldn't worry about it. I really would not worry about it. It's going to take so many, removals and reinsertion. That O-ring is so sturdy, nothing's going to happen to it. Just be gentle with it, and always insert them in the correct orientation and angle. Of course, that's a vertical type system where you hold the cards vertically and insert them in position. It should be no problem. And with those now, what are you planning on doing? You're going to disable ink monitoring? Is that it? So if that's the case, at some point I thought that we're going to come up with like single-use chips for them. And if they had, then you would replace them, and then you would have full ink monitoring available, just like with these. With single-use chips, I have full ink level monitoring, and so I don't have to worry about that. But later on, we're going to stop buying the chips, and we're going to go with a basically, in this case, a chipless system for the Canon. Let's see here. Hold on one second. Do you have a jig for filling CLI 42 cartridges to hold them firmly while filling? No, I do not, actually. I do not. I just, what do you have to do? Really, not much. Boom. Boom. Take out the plug. I tilt the cartridge this way. See, this should not have any ink in it. There should be ink here. Okay, this should be close to empty. Hold it in this position. Hold it vertically. Fill to the very top. Okay. Tilt it slightly. Remove it like this. You want to avoid any kind of spillover. That's what you're trying to do. and plug it back up. I don't want my cartridges to be vertical. I want to be able to tilt them. That helps in your filling process so you don't end up with a mess. Okay. You would kind of end up with a mess. It's not like the Pro 10. The Pro 10s are filled on the end of the sponge by dripping ink on them. So those have to be basically straight up looking up at you, but not the CLI 42. So it's not necessary. You deserve more likes. Well, again, it's it's up to people. I cannot force them to do that. Casper says, "Hello, Jose. What's your thoughts on the tea? Did you? I think we already covered that. Okay, and we should be okay. Thank you, Master. I'm ready for start my prints. Yes. All righty. Good. Thanks for all you do. It is appreciated. Again, I thank you guys for spending your time with me every Sunday evening. It's just something that I really do appreciate, and it does really help the channel because it shows YouTube how consistent you guys are. Ray says, "Muchas gracias. Did you say that 8320? What you think about the Epson 2700?" I'm not familiar with it. 2700. What does it have a prefix or just Epson 2700? What is that? Let me see. Let's look it up. Epson 2700. Let's see, 2700 printer. I don't know what that looks like. It's a wireless printer. Oh, okay. It's a 4-color all-in-one. Put it over here. This one right here. Okay, I didn't. That's an Eco Tank. So yeah, I mean that's dye, and it's really like a low quality dye ink. It's not as good as the ink used in the Claria type ink used in their regular printers, like the 15,000, for instance. The OEM inks are far superior to the ones used in the EcoTank printers. But anyway, what were actually interested in doing? What, printing stickers? Yeah, that would be an excellent printer for that. Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, at some point, I'm going to start exploring the EcoTank family. They sound pretty interested, and this was not too outrageously priced either. So, $249 is not that bad. Does an ICC profile include rendering intent? No, it does not. It does not. It doesn't include any of that. So what it does is just simply this. Let me finish reading. When I switch ICC profiles in QImage, it seems to change those settings from one ICC profile to the other. No, that's just because QImage remembers what your last choice was for a particular setup. So ICC profiles are just instruction. It's just like a conductor conducting an orchestra, and every conductor will produce a slightly different rendition of a particular piece. Okay, a musical piece on music sheet in instrumentals, people playing their instruments, the conductor will conduct, and you will get a different feeling. That same identical piece of music will be rendered slightly different. So each conductor is an ICC profile. Okay, and is why do you need a conductor for the rendition will be the paper. Okay, so you have papers that will render a set of patches printed with no color management a certain way. Okay, and another set of papers will render it slightly different. So the ICC profile you create takes all of those little partially erroneous renderings and brings them back to what it should be. So each profile is custom made for each paper's rendering. Okay, nothing to do with rendering intent. That has to do with how you bring in out of gamma colors, whether you shift The ones that are already in gamut are not to make room for those, or whether you do not shift them. You just force them on the outer edge of the gamut bubble, if you will. So the relative colorimetric will not shift somebody's skin tones if it's already in gamut. Okay. If it's not in gamut and it's not a skin tone, it's not something important, and you choose perceptual, it will force everything in and everything will just move accordingly to allow everything that's out of gamut to come in. It will shift colors. It will say, well, this red is impossible for that printer to produce. So we're going to change the value of that red slightly to bring it within the gamut of that printer, okay, within the ability of that printer, so to speak. So that's what it does. So you have to set that manually. Black point compensation, that's not part of the ICC profile. ICC profile is only the way that the printer receives that information from your editor. The ICC profile steps in and says, wait a minute, you chose this paper, so I have to send special instructions to the printer. Okay, it takes that 6 colors or 4 colors, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 colors, and it can reproduce millions of colors. Okay, that's all it's doing. It's just set of instructions so that the errors that were found, okay, that exist, that were endemic to that particular paper ink printer combination, are fairly well taken care of, okay, and translated so that your results supposed to match what you see on your screen, right? And that will not happen if you use a mismatch ICC profile, okay? If you want a quiet rendition of that particular music piece, then you have to hire this conductor, because the other conductor produces a very boisterous rendition of that piece. You see what I mean? So the conductor is the ICC profile. Why? Because the audience wants to hear boisterous renditions, you see, and the other audience wants to hear a quiet, calm rendition. You get me? That's the paper characteristics, okay? It's different. Every paper has different characteristics, and the patches are standard. That's a standard set of colors, okay? And depending on the rendition with each piece of paper, you have to create a custom profile, a custom set of corrections, okay? That's what that does. You choose your rendering intent yourself, whatever you choose, whatever you prefer, and you can print both of them and see what each one does. The same thing with black point compensation. Okay, I have my Pro 1000 always on to avoid clean cycles when it is starting. Yeah, having it on does not avoid clean cycles. It's having it on prevents the clean cycles that are triggered when you turn the printer off. When you turn the printer off, go to the bathroom, come back and turn it back on, it will run a cleaning cycle. It thinks you haven't been printing for 4 weeks. Yeah, so don't do that. Just leave it on. You can disable the power off situation. It's an automatic power off where the printer will turn itself off after a certain number of minutes. So disable that, put it to never, okay? That will leave your printer constantly on. You might spend $1.50 a month on electricity keeping that printer on. It's really not that much of an issue. You'll blow more ink otherwise. And ink is almost $1 per ml. So, okay. So let's see. I didn't see a big ink waste as I read on the internet. Is that normal? Well, how do you know how much ink you actually used? You cannot really use the indicators. You got to weigh the waste ink cartridge. You got to go in and take this sucker out and keep track of its weight. That's the only way you can tell. If you weigh it every week, then you know how much waste you have generated. And then, you got to think, wait a minute, I wasted more ink than I actually used for prints. That's bad. You shouldn't do that. You should be not wasting, but using more ink for prints than will end up inside that cartridge. Peter says, I set up my EcoTank printer for family and photo printing. Out of the box was horrible. I did an X-Ray Studio, i1 Studio profile and got decent results on glossy paper. User very happy printing phone pictures, etc. Yeah, well, those phone printing apps, they're not color corrected at all. They're not using a color um, workflow like color manage workflow. So you're going to get horrible results anyway. But profiling, that will help. That will help. I told you the inks are just not as good as the real Claria inks that Epson will use on a dye ink printer like the 1400, the 1430, and now the 1500, the 15,000. Those are absolutely excellent inks. These eco tanks are made for just that, for knocking off some handouts that you're going to have at a meeting in your office. That's it. They're just convenient. If you're going to print a lot of documents, then why not? Nico says, thank you to Charles. Starboy says, will the OEM Vivid Magenta inks and Vivid Light Magenta inks recycled from 4880 cartridges work on modified OEM Epson Magenta ink? No, they will not. I'm sorry, but they do not. The difference is too intense, and you will get really, really bad results on anything that has magenta in it. Anything that has magenta in it will be way over saturated. I've done that. Been there, done that. The only time that I did that was because I was using a German ink, pigment ink, on my 3880, and the magenta ink was so lacking gloss that I could not print on anything with a shine on it, because it would, basically show up as matte. It didn't have any sheen at all. So I decided to go back to OEM, at least for those two colors, and I refilled my cartridges with that. But they have to match. If you're a 3800, you got to use non-vivid magenta ink. Okay. So I thought, okay, I'll profile it. Yeah, that helped a little bit, but it was still not quite right. Your anything with magenta was just oversaturated. And I know it's easy because it's just readily available. You can use that ink, and it's a lot cheaper than buying, your regular ink cartridges. Ultra 707 says, can you show us the settings for P100 to stop it from turning off? Okay, no problem at all. Let me look that up real quick. Wrong. Sorry. Control. Okay. Devices and printers. Pro 100. Okay, let me pop that over here. Alrighty. Okay. So we're going to go to the driver. This is assuming you have Windows. It might be different on a Mac. So basically what I did was right click on the icon and chose printer preferences. Go to maintenance, power off. You see that right there? Click on that. Turn printer off. That'll turn it off by hand. Okay. So you don't want to do that. You can do that if your printer is across the office somewhere and you want to power it off. Auto power is what you want. So make sure you don't get confused by these two. Auto power. And now we're going to move this over here so you all can see it. Normally it'll be enable. Okay. And so auto power on, auto power off. What does that mean? That when it is off and you send a job, it might turn it on its own. So disable. Normally I had it set for, I think it was like 30 minutes. After 30 minutes of non-use, it powers it off, literally. So we don't want that. We want it to be disable and disable on both options, okay? And click and apply. That's it. That's all you have to do. Okay. Is there anything else? We're getting close to about the last half hour, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to talk about resetting your waste ink counters. Okay. And so the difference, and this is only something that can be done on Epson printers, really. Canon is not very helpful for this, for us to be able to do that. Uh, to be able to say, for instance, bypass waste ink collection on a Pro 100 or a Pro 10 or a Pro 1 and send it to an outside bottle. You can do that on Epson printers. Quite often you have to have the actual instructions from someone who has done it. And what does that entail? So for instance, I got a R2000 on the corner over there. You can't see it in this dark room, but believe me, it's there and plugged in right now. So on the side, the right side of the printer is the purge unit. That's where the printhead will park itself after it finishes a print job. And it will then seal after a few seconds of non-printing. It will then lower itself and seal against that gasket. It keeps that printhead from drying, the nozzle plate that is, and it prevents clogging, okay, within a certain amount of time. Okay, I'm not saying 6 months. Remember, this one sat for 1.5 years unused. So the purge unit that parks itself against that also has a secondary function of applying vacuum to your printhead when you're running a cleaning cycle. So it generates vacuum. See, the printhead is not spitting out ink during a cleaning cycle. The ink is being sucked out of it, okay? And so that should force any kind of debris or dryness on the printhead nozzle plate out. And it collects on a ceramic sponge. It's basically a rectangle of ceramic material that has millions of little pores on it. And underneath that is a peristaltic pump. That's a hard one for me to say. That applies that vacuum, and eventually a couple of pieces of tubing. And that goes down the side of your printer, the far right side. There's a panel there. And you have to be able to access that panel in order to disconnect those two tubings. They're connected via two connectors. So the upper connectors come from the pump. The lower connector feeds the tubes that go to the internal pads deep inside your printer. You have to disconnect that section right there. Connect the same connectors to longer pieces of tubing and then feed them out the louver holes. Or you may have to drill a hole in the side panel to feed them out. That's what I did on the R2000. I removed that side panel. I unplugged the tubes, attached it to longer tubes. Those tubes are now out of the printer into 2 bottles. Okay, 1 bottle, I mean, just a single bottle. Anytime it runs a cleaning cycle, the ink no longer goes into the internal waste pads. It actually gets collected outside into a bottle. You may want to do that if you know, say for instance, this is a chance you have to take, because if you have to drill a hole, then they'll know. Okay, but if you do not have to drill a hole, say you have some louvers, you can actually feed that out and no one will know that you did that to your printer. But you begin to do that when your pads are pristine white still, right? As soon as you set it up. If you know how to do it now. And if you can do it in a way that's reversible, then no one will know the better, okay? No one will know. It'll just be funny that your pants are so clean, right? So now you're collecting ink outside, but the counter is still counting. It's still counting, and the counter goes up and it reaches a certain level. This is all from generated waste ink. When it reaches a maximum amount, it renders your printer unusable. That's it. That's the end of everything. You have to send it in, have the printer disassemble, have removed the internal waste ink pads, and replace them, and then reset the counters. Well, if we avoid getting those waste ink pads dirty to begin with, and we have been collecting our ink all out, outside on that bottle or whatever you choose to use, all we have to worry about is resetting those counters. Those numbers have to be brought from a maximum amount to a 0 amount. And there are 3 ways to do that. With the R3, 3000, 2000, 600, and many other printers out there, you can reset the ink counters. Okay. The most professional way, what the technicians actually use is an adjustment program. And then there's also the WIC tool, WIC reset. And then there's, of course, um, Inkjet Solutions, I believe, use the same WIC tool. And inkchip.net uses a similar type of WIC tool. Okay. They keep calling it WIC. I don't know why, but that's what they call it. And those tools allow you to reset the counters, but you need to purchase a reset code. So it's a serial number that you copy and paste in and reset them. So I'm going to be doing the actual reset, not tonight. I'm going to show you the examples because I need to save my actual reset for the R2000, which really doesn't need to be reset. It's actually pretty low. I used the adjustment tool not long ago, like a year, like 2 years ago, I used it. And within that last 6 months of use, I really didn't add that much ink in the waste pads. So, but I'm still going to do it. But I promised inkchip.net that I would do an example of their tool using one of my printers. So I'm going to do it later and you will be able to see that this week. But tonight we're going to demonstrate what you can do. So let's go over here to the so-called share screen. This is the adjustment tool. This is what you get when you actually doing it officially. Okay, this is if you were a technician, you would be doing that and your name would be here. Okay, your name would be here. So the problem with these, if you can access them, if you can find them, is that most of these tools, your antiviral software will see them as intruders, as very, very bad guys. Okay. So we know they are not. So what you have to do is disable it for a while. So while you're using this type of tool. So in this case, the same thing goes. In a couple of days, if I leave this unattended, it will disable the exe, it will delete it. So let's go ahead and accept that. And it will then give us this option. And we're going to particular adjustment mode because we're going to select that manually. As you can see, it has the Epson Stylus Photo R2000 selected. We're going to go here. And again, it's going to change to another work window and it will have a ton of stuff. A ton of stuff. This is for the professional technician, folks. So don't mess around with anything having to do with the EEPROM, data copy, initial setting, initialize PF, the deterioration of disable PF deterioration, all of that stuff. Forget about it. Do not play with that. It's got a head cleaning. It has a ink charge. So if you need to remove air from your printer, especially on like a 3800, 3880, if you have the adjustment program for those, you can do an ink recharge and that will blow that air right out. Okay. No amount of cleaning cycles you do will actually remove that air from the ink lines. So you don't want to waste your time doing that. Just run the ink charge. If you are using refillable cartridges anyway and refillable type third-party inks, don't worry about it. That's the price you pay for getting air in your ink lines. But at least you'll be able to get rid of it. But what we are interested in is just this waste ink pad counter. Okay. So we click on that and we click on OK. And we go to the next window. Pad counters and pad counter. There are two. The foam that you see along the platen, that's one of them. And then you have the internal one. So we're going to check. The counter value has been read properly. We're only at 5%, folks. Okay. So no need to worry about this one. If we wanted to, then we go ahead and proceed. And we would install we don't have to install anything here. You can actually just do it. And initialization will clear the selected above counters and we'll set them to 0. Well, we don't want to do that because we want to save it for the ink chip tool. Okay, so that's how you do that with the adjustment program. Again, you got to be really careful because you can mess up really seriously. Okay, if you start messing around with some of the other options. Okay, so this is only doing the wasting counter. So you would click those boxes again and do the initialization. Then you power off the printer, power it back on, And when you read it back, it will be at 0. Okay, and you can continue to print. Or otherwise, you would not be able to print any longer. Okay, the other program, and again, this is a wick reset. So we have the Epson Pro 1, the stylus R2000 right here. We're going to read the waste ink counters. It reads them again, 4.0, 4.19, and 475. And then you hit close, or you go ahead and reset them. When you reset the counters, you read or reset. So you're reading them now. You're going to reset it. It's going to ask you to insert the serial code that you purchased, and it will reset the counters back to 0. The adjustment program can be used forever. It can be used hundreds of times, as long as you have hundreds of R2000s. They're specific to a model of printer, though. These are not. This is universal for any printer that is supported, okay? It has to be supported. So here's a list of supported printers. And let's see what we got to do here. We got to close that. Supported printers are here. You got a dollar mark for those that you have to buy a reset waste serial number for. So all of these artisan numbers are supported. And again, all of these are supported. The ones that have a red X are simply not supported. And you have other categories of support. So read waste. You can read the waste for free. You notice it doesn't have a dollar sign. And then the ones that have the X, there's no support for those particular categories. Okay, like disabling inks, recovery, firmware, that type of thing. So that is that. Now we're going to do the wick tool from Inkchip. Very simple. That's what it looks like. That's it. Read waste counters. And he reads them, the same values. Okay, so now reset the waste ink counters. We're going to enter the code and hit OK. You're done. You are done. Again, it's going to cost you $10 to do the ink reset, which is a lot better, okay, a lot better than having to send your printer in for a technician to take it all apart and install new waste ink pads and all of that stuff. If you had done the bypass modification when it was relatively new, your waste ink pads will be spanky clean, okay? Now, this is what the R2000 driver looks like. And again, what would happen is that if you can reset the inks, some printers you can actually reset the ink on certain, that wick tool, that second one that I showed you, it will just reset all of the chips back to full. As you can see, they are just slightly off from max. And this is after I install the brand new set. Keep in mind, there's cyan and there's no light cyan, you see? Then we have gloss optimizer, PK or matte black, orange, and red. Matte black, this is photo black, I mean. Matte black, magenta, there's no photo magenta or light magenta, okay? So those colors are not necessary, apparently. The print engine does all of the magic and it doesn't require the need of any light magenta or light cyan. So that's kind of unusual, isn't it? All right. I think that is it for now. Any more questions? Please go ahead and post them, or we might have to cut out a little early today, okay? I'm getting hungry for some dinner. So I'll give you guys a chance to ask anything else. This coming week, I'm going to be doing the actual reset. That's what I'm going to provide to Inkchip people. And they'll be very glad because I don't think they have a good, very well explained. The ones that they have are very just kind of graphic-y and very quick. And so you might want to have something a little bit more detailed. You know me, that I'm all about details. So we're still up at 57 folks here. Let me see if there's anything. Oh, here we go. Somebody asked today about a Pro One. And they wanted to know, they found it on eBay, and they wanted to know if that would be, I told you that's a 3-year-old Pro One. Well, Even if it was in good shape, the printhead is 3 years old. The Pro One cannot sit for a long time without printing. It will develop a B200 error, and you better hope and pray that you can reset that by simply unplugging the printer and plugging it back on. Okay, that has saved me lately a couple of times, more than a couple of times. I'm on my third printhead on a printer that I got about a year after it came out, and I don't remember when it came out. So it hasn't been many, many years. Okay, it's been less than the Pro. The Pro 100 is going on 8 years this August. Okay, so that'll be its birthday, as far as being in this home. So you have to kind of consider the fact that you're going to need a printhead pretty soon. Hopefully not, but more than likely you will. And where are you going to find one? I wouldn't trust anything on eBay. Any of these Chinese refurbished printheads, forget about it. They are not good. Okay, they are not good. I used to be able to get Pro One printheads for about $155. The company that I got them from no longer has them. Internal waste ink pads, they'll get full. They will get full. That Pro One runs more cleaning cycles than anything I own. Okay, so those pads will get full. Can they be exchanged? If they had them, but they don't. So all of these service centers don't even work on Pro Ones anymore. So it really, I mean, I'm glad I still have one. I got a lot of ink that I need to go through. Fine. But if something happens to it, there's not much I can do with it, really. So it's not one of those that's a really good choice to buy used. If it's more like in the Pro 10 category, I haven't heard any printhead troubles with the Pro 10, not like the Pro 1. Okay. Pro 100, definitely. If you can find one that is only, a couple years old, and, people just don't print anyway. So it'll probably have very little use on it. That's just the nature of most people that buy printers, especially if they're reselling them. They got tired of it. They got tired of the cost. That's what happens. The rude awakening, if you will, hit them. So they get rid of the printer by selling it on eBay. Shipping. Gosh, how well are you going to pack that printer for me? Okay. I really don't trust most people when it comes to packing. So how about Craigslist? Maybe better. I mean, there's no shipping involved. You can visually go see it, but it'll often be in the parking lot of Walmart or 7-Eleven. There's no way you can test it, you see. So if you're allowed to go, I was allowed to go to a 3800, Epson 3800 seller's house, and I was able to run it. And I popped it in my car, took it home, plugged it in, boom, working perfectly. Yeah. So that would be one way, but it's very difficult and you're taking a chance unless you're absolutely a fantastic printer mechanic and you can solve anything. Okay. And you have a machine shop, you can actually manufacture, parts for it. Okay. Other than that, you're really taking a chance. And most of these sellers don't allow returns. So you got to be careful. Yep. It's a very iffy situation. Let me see what's happening in Facebook. Anything? I don't see much. Somebody did print something the other day that was quite nice. I really did love it. Again, folks, if you are a member of my Facebook group, don't hesitate to post your work. Yeah, do that. It really helps the rest of us to see what people are doing with a particular set of printers. So I don't know what printer this guy used, but I love it. I love the fact that oh, wait a minute, this is not my actual group, is it? Why is it that I cannot access my groups? Here we go. They changed the format again. Oh my gosh. Why are they doing that? Okay. They're constantly changing where the tabs are located. Man. Looking at going to Precision Colors inks from my Canon Pro 10, I have a set of OEM inks in the printer currently about half full on most of them. I have another brand new set of OEM as well. My question is, can I put PC inks in the card that has a little bit of ink in it? Yes. And when you have two sets and you want to arrive at that double set condition so that you can then replace complete sets when you get going with your refilling process, people worry about the fact that there might be some residual ink. Well, the same thing with this one here. There was residual ink in that 15,000 back there, and I filled it with the PC inks, and so far so good. I have not had any kind of a weird reaction, physical reaction between the two inks. I haven't seen a color change at all between the two inks, and so I'm very, very glad with that. Remember, we printed that nice black and white. Let me get it so you guys get. I don't know whether he's here tonight or not. I didn't hear him come in. He's the guy that calls me legend. Let me see. Where is that beautiful print? Here it is. So we did this nice, gorgeous black and white. Let me go back to me. And here we are. And it came out beautiful. It's changing color because this monitor is bluish. You can see the bluish tint. And then when I switch over to this side, it's more neutral. Believe me, this is neutral as you can get. And this is after like maybe 80-20 ratio of PC inks and OEM inks in that printer running right now. So I was expecting a pretty substantial color shift, and I didn't get it. So I told him about that, and he was very glad that that's the kind of results that we were getting here. So yeah, don't worry about it unless it's already been reported by us that there is a danger of a some kind of physical reaction. You can go ahead and top off your almost empty cartridges that you're running OEM in with the PC inks. Believe me, he has already done all of that testing. RC fun diversions. That sounds. Do you fly? Do you run RC? Nice to have you. Mario Rossi says, "Hi Jose, I need to buy a monitor." Oh, you're asking the wrong guy. I really am not that well versed on monitors. Hopefully, one of you here can help him. Yeah, just buy something that will give you at least all of your sRGB. And getting into the RGB, Adobe RGB side of things. The better you have rendition wise, the more you'll be able to determine, as long as you're using the correct color, working color space in your editor, you get a good idea of what your image should look like on paper. I need to start learning a little bit more about monitors. All right. Ramon Lepage. I don't know how to say that. Lepage. Thanks, Jose. Very helpful in the knowledge you share. Yes, Dynax Mirage Rip software is available for Canon ProGraph. Muy bueno. So how much does that cost, man? Isn't it very expensive? I was thinking about starting to, actually, Precision Colors and I, when we got into the Pro 1000s, we were talking about start using a rip, but never really got into it. I never really looked into it. I'm not even going to try that. Hi, Jose. Epson 3880, R3000. Cleaning question. What is that? What cleaning questions do you have? I think you're down here. Okay. Did you already sign up? I just finished accepting all of the new applicants just now. People there will be able to help you with anything you have. as well as me. Pastor says, Jose, do you know any longevity tests on Epson 673 inks for the L? No, there's really nothing because, again, like I said, those are considered, inferior inks as far as comparing to real Epson dye inks. And so no company that does any kind of testing is even interested in it. You will have to kind of run your own tests yourself. After filling cartridges photo black with flushing fluid and do some prints on black mostly until printout is 100%, how much fluid app is still in the tube? What printer? What printer? Did you tell me your printer? Oh, okay. Yeah. A lot. Okay. There's a lot. Okay. As long as you're now printing with ink now, then you probably pushed it out. What I would run, like I said earlier, with that adjustment program, a complete ink refill. And that way you actually push out at least 20 milliliters of ink out of the system. Okay. And that way you will be absolutely sure now you're running on real ink. That's the only way. Multiple cleaning cycles as well. Even after you think you're printing with ink, with nothing but ink and not with the cleaner. Art, are you applauding me, man? Awesome. Thank you. I'm looking at that little Mario Rossi says thank you. No problem at all, man. That's what we're here for. Request a membership for your Facebook page now to post photo of cleaning. Yeah. Let me check again. Make sure that we are up to date in our approvals. Let's see. Here we are. I got you. Okay, you're in. You just did it now. You're in now. So you are set. You're good to go. Ramon says, yes, it is $259 for the Pro 1000. What? For a Pro 1000? Oh, you mean, what do you mean? What do you mean? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Did you? Oh, okay. Okay. I'm sorry. See, I forgot what you were talking about. 259 for the Pro 1000. That's a Mirage. Okay. The RIP. Hmm. I'll have to look at some videos and see what it does that I am not able to do otherwise. I think you can do all kinds of things like print longer. Yeah. Maybe, unless that's actually written in the printer's firmware, then it's a no-go. The only EcoTanks configured for 4-color photo printing are the out of the box are the ET7700, 7750. There is a way to hack the other EcoTank printers to 4-color photo, but it isn't for the average user. Did I miss the code for Epson printers to make chipless? No, you did not. I didn't show them because the code can only be used once, so I'm not going to put it up here. You will see it when I actually do the actual reset for the R2000 back there, and I will be doing that this very early week, probably tomorrow night. And so we'll post it up. I'll give the chipless people, the ink chip people, the link, and they can put it on their site, and we'll use that code. And once you use the code, that's it. It's done. You cannot reuse it. So I don't want to post it here and then not really reset my printer. Then somebody can just copy it and take it, and that would not be good, right? Okay, so they're talking about purging out the pigment black and replace it with photo K. Set up and use ICC profile, and then, oh my goodness, that's a lot of work. Yeah. Yeah, maybe more than that. Maybe more. I am not entirely sure how much ink it takes. Right. You will not be printing with matte black any longer for your plain paper printing. Yeah, one of these days I'm going to get into one of these printers. I got to find out to see exactly which one would be the best purchase with the best options. I would like to get a nice printer that I can then convert to a proper, and I mean proper sublimation printer. I mainly print black and white fine art photographs. Would there be a reason to upgrade my Epson R2400? If so, can you recommend a printer for black and white printing? I don't see why you would have to do that. As long as your 2400 is working perfectly well, stick to it. It's a great printer. Great printer. And it doesn't have to screw around with the black ink switch valve because you just switch the cartridges, right? You remember that, right? It's awesome. I used to have them, but I sold it because I was having some roller transport problems, and I sold it to a repair guy, and he paid me $100 for it. All right, Art says, got it. Thanks, Mr. J. What did you ask me, Art? I don't remember. Let me see what else we got here. That's weird. Check this out, you guys. I purchased some mustache premium photo paper. Have you guys ever heard of that? I haven't. Does anyone have any ICC profiles for that? Of course not. Whatever paper that is. Look at this. Premier Art water resistant canvas. I gotta buy some more canvas. I gotta buy some rolls of canvas that are 17-inch and at a reasonable price, and start doing some canvases on my P800. I really do. That's my cousin right there. This is really neat. Somebody just printed and mounted this long panoramic shot, and wait till you see the printer that he used. Let me see if I can expand this. Not much more. Not much better, but okay, so he's going to show us the printer in a second. Look at that. That looks like masonite with a wooden frame in the back. Nice. So that's going to become a floating type mount. And he's going to pad his printer, I think. Oh, he did not. Oh, he did it early already. So it's got to be like a big old 64-inch type printer. Anyway, I think that's time for us to say goodbye. I think it is. It's about 1 minute before our normal time. Let's see if there's anything else here that I need to cover. Let me go back to me. Okay, we got one more question here. We'll try to help this person out, and then we'll say goodbye. And hopefully we'll have a really good week coming up here. I got virtual schooling with the boy tomorrow. I got to pick up some meds at the military hospital here in Bethesda. In tomorrow and Tuesday we have schooling, and then Fridays we'll have Wednesday and Thursday off for our own personal needs. Yeah, and try to make some videos for you guys. Okay, hello, Jose. I have a Canon Pro 1. After installing Chrome Optimizer, it runs out of ink after 2 or 3 prints, and the print is wet. Only the Canon PGI Chrome Optimizer run out of ink. It's leaking. It's got to be leaking. I don't know what. Did that happen just once? When you replace that one cartridge, something is up. That should not happen. Yeah, it's just pouring Chrome Optimizer on your paper. Did you have any problems prior to that? I hope not. I really can't say. I would have to actually look at it and see it myself. All right, I think that's it. Let's go ahead and pop that music back on. Just like that. We'll switch over to this. I'll leave it kind of low so I can say, if I need to say something, I'll say goodbye to Jay Mintz. Thank you. And Nikos, of course. Michael Moore says, bon appetit. I hope so. I don't know what we planned. Oh, I know what we're going to make for dinner. I got to make part of it. My wife did the salad. Peter says, thank you for another helpful and inspiring stream. All of the best. Happy printing to all Jose's fans around the world. Oh, that's nice. Thank you. Have a blessed week, sir. And you too. Absolutely. We'll keep it safe and healthy. We'll try to stay in a good mood. Rob Ball says, I just got my PC Canon Pro 10 ink refills. Well, I think you mean the ink, right? Or did you buy refilled cards? I didn't know he did that. Tyrone Photography says 3 times. Good Lord. That's not good. Something's wrong, my friend. Something is wrong. That might require a trip to the service center. Okay, I'll take a look at it. That's in Spanish. Alrighty. Same to you, my friend. Take care. Mohammed, you should have been here a little bit earlier, my friend. How many pieces of paper can I put in the manual feeder on my IPF 1000? As many as will fit, but don't overdo it. Okay, do not overdo it. You'll get some feed problems. So take it easy with that. I actually feed them one at a time. But if you have a lot of prints to make, I would go 10. 10 is safe. 10, 15. All righty. We'll see you next week, folks. Enjoy life. Enjoy printing. We'll see you in a few more days. Bye-bye, everybody.